Yes. Hello, my beautiful friends, and welcome back. I hope that your week was outstanding. We have a tremendous show planned this evening. We've got more voter fraud problems that are percolating across the nation. We'll talk about Alaska. We'll see what's happening in Arizona with some missing ballots that are not being delivered. And of course, we've got some fallout from New Jersey, where we had the bombshell earlier this week, where we saw that there are thousands of non-citizens and illegal aliens on their voter rolls. We now have Congress sending a letter over to them specifically demanding some additional action. And so the waves just keep coming. We're grateful that this is now being shaken loose and we can do something about it. So we'll talk about all that. Then we've got the biggest Biden backstab that we've perhaps talked about. Well, that's maybe overselling it because there's been a lot of them. But we're now learning that in the final hours, the final days of Joe Biden's administration, they were racing to create at least another million TPSers to stick around to prevent the president from doing anything about it. We've got all of the documents now released, courtesy of Senator Eric Schmitt. We'll see what's inside and also see what the administration is doing about some of this, because new reporting says that they dropped something like 84 billion with a B dollars in fines on these non-citizens and illegals who were refusing to leave. So just hit them in the pocketbook. Then we've got the big update on the Shiloh Hendrix trial. We saw that came to a conclusion yesterday with a conviction as to one count. We're going to go through it in detail. I've got the jury instructions queued up. I've got the judge's final decision on the defense motion to dismiss, which was obviously denied. And we'll parse together exactly who this cameraman was and why this verdict is such a travesty. And of course, see what you have to say about all of this and more. And we're very glad that you're joining us and here and with us to celebrate this lovely end of the week, this beautiful and amazing Friday. Happy to be here. It's been a doozy. We've had a lot of updates this week, but we're not done yet. We got some good stuff to attend to today. And so thanks for joining us and subscribing and liking the video and all of the things, and for being here. Let's confirm we're coming across loud and clear. I think it's working, which is tremendous news. That means we can go ahead and get started. So let's do it, shall we? Starting right here. Major election problems continue to emerge from throughout the entire nation. We see that in the aftermath of New Jersey's bombshell explaining that there were at least 6,600 non-citizens on the voter rolls, other states are starting to shake things up and to investigate what's going on their voter rolls. And we suspect a lot of this is in the aftermath of Harmeet, Dhillon, the Trump admin, and others saying, we're going to be coming for you if you facilitate illegal aliens voting on our elections. We saw that in New Jersey, 400, give or take. We still don't know really who those people were, what they voted for, where they came from, or what they are doing, or whether they'll be prosecuted for, voting illegally, even though they're not supposed to be here. But now we see there are new problems that need to be addressed. And this story just popped this week explaining that Alaska is now sending 3,000 letters out to their own voters, so-called, asking them to verify their citizenship, which means, according to Alaska records, they're probably not citizens. And we're asking, how could this amount of people get on a voter roll list when they've explained it's not possible? It's all just made up by our side, and it's all a giant conspiracy theory. Much ado about nothing, as they say. We don't even need to talk about the SAVE Act because it's just not happening. Turns out it is, and it's happening all over the place. And as usual, we suspect these are limited hangouts, that the numbers are, in fact, much higher, but the states have to pretend like they're doing something about this in order to evade any potential criminal liability after the election is over. And so this was a big one. It's even catching the Alaskans by surprise. And maybe this is why Lisa Murkowski has come out officially, the senator from Alaska, and said, we don't want any support of the SAVE Act from her office. Now we see 3,000 letters went out. We've got an August 18th primary coming up there in Alaska. And now this 3,000 number of letters going out is much higher than usual. Unusually high is what they say. And this has raised concerns among some state lawmakers out there, including one who said that some constituents who receive them are U.S. citizens. Now, Alaska Division of Elections Director, a woman called Carol Beecher, told state lawmakers during a hearing that it appears that, quote, a lot of old data was picked up somehow when the division conducted voter roll maintenance that compares its list with the DMV list. And the process usually comes back out with 200 names, but not now. Now it's 3,000. She also estimated during that hearing that it was probably about 3,500 that went out, but they confirmed the number was about 3,048. And of course, everyone's paying attention to this now because it's been admitted by the left. They've said forever that it's not happening. Turns out it is. They came out and confirmed it for us. Research and prosecution say it's extremely rare, but now we know that's not true. And they always try to minimize it. Okay, 400 people voted. That cancels out 400 people's votes. Would you like your vote not to count? Are you okay, Mr. Liberal, if your vote is being canceled by an illegal alien? Why don't we volunteer your votes? But we don't want our votes to be watered down. Now, Trump, of course, wants to push changes through. We want Congress to get it done. Lisa Murkowski refuses to do that. And this, of course, though, is not disenfranchising voters. This happens as part of routine list maintenance, something that we've been demanding forever, something that the blue states have adamantly opposed. The Alaska letter asks recipients to affirm their citizenship. Very simple to do that. All they got to do is send a letter back in. All they need to do is make a phone call or an email. They're not even requiring paperwork or documentation. And those who receive the letter, though, are removed to the list of, quote, inactive voters. So they're not going to be able to vote in this upcoming election. And we covered earlier this week another letter from the Democracy Docket Dorks who sent that over to Brad Raffensperger. It was a demand letter. Raffensperger in Georgia identified 100,000 names on their list that were problematic, potentially. Not confirmed, but he said, hey, I got to send this out to the rest of the counties and have them validate these things. If you investigate and find that there's a problem, you guys need to boot them off. But that's a big number. And the democracy folks, the leftists, they don't want that to happen at all. They sent a letter. They said, you got a couple of false positives in there, so you have to stop the entire inquiry and send another letter back to the county folks and tell them, stop your checking, because the lists and the problems with the list are beneficial to their efforts. So if the division doesn't hear back, they could still cast a special kind of ballot that requires that they attest that, yeah, I actually am a citizen. But others said, you know, it is not disenfranchising the individual from being able to vote. It's just a simple measure that the division has to take to make sure that we only have citizens voting, which is obvious. Now, people who respond to the letter that say they are citizens will go right back to the active list. One person, a state rep called Andrew Gray, a Democrat, said the only people who had contacted his office were citizens, clearly, right? Because a non-citizen is not going to say, oh, I'm registered as a citizen on your list. Another Democrat asked if the letters were related to another decision last year to share some data with the DOJ. But Beecher said, no, it has nothing to do with that at all. This is the information that we have received specifically from the DMV, which is what we saw happening in New Jersey. Same situation we saw happening in Arizona that we've covered here for days. She said the Division of Elections is not heard from the DOJ, and they're not telling us that they're non-citizens. And the DMV says, wait, but you asked for our information and that was non-routine. Now, Alaska was one of at least 16 states that have provided or said it would provide the data back to the Trump folks: name, date of birth, driver's license, partial socials, and more. Alaska and Texas also signed on to it. And Homeland wants to run the state lists through the federal list so that we can validate that we don't have non-citizens on there. Now, voting and civil rights groups sued. They said, you guys cannot share anything, and they call themselves voting rights groups and civil rights groups. Really, they're just electioneering groups that are working on behalf of the Democratic Party, like the League of Women Voters, which is a nonprofit that has been set up literally to create standing, to file lawsuits, and enter into settlement agreements. They've been doing this for years now, including back in 2020. So in response to the questions, the division of the motor vehicles released a memo on Thursday, and they provided the agency with 15,000 DMV license and identification applicants and requested that the DMV provide citizenship records for those people. The memo said it was a non-routine request, okay? And so that is not a big number. If we're thinking, okay, maybe 3,000 on the top line out of what, 15,000 on the bottom line, maybe the number's way bigger than 3,000. The memo said that the Division of Elections followed up in June. DMV said it responded and gave data, included only those records where the latest record confirmed status for an individual was other than a citizen. So some state list is saying they don't have proof, they don't have validation that these people are citizens, and so now they're following up on it. All good, all normal. This is what we should be doing everywhere, and validating this like once a month, just have some automated systems that just run through the spreadsheets. Kirch said that his agency had sent the DMV, quote, the entire voter list, and they ran ours against theirs. So maybe it is everybody. Now, officials unsure why so many voters had their status questioned. Beecher, during the hearing, said it remained unclear why the list of voters identified as potential non-citizens was so large. It is possible people applied to get a driver's license before they were citizens, and then since after that became citizens, but those people didn't show up in the records, saying, I believe that people probably don't realize that all of these governmental entities don't talk to each other, which is part of the problem. And Kirch gave an example on Thursday. He said, listen, what if a person was not a citizen some years ago, but they received their driver's license and then became a citizen and then registered to vote? The state pays an annual dividend from its oil wealth fund, and the DMV would still have the old records. That is one possibility, right? But what if they don't not become a citizen? What if all of that happens, but they don't become a citizen and they do those other things? That's why we want to check and validate it. So he said people should update their information just to make sure. And that's all good news, but that's another big fat number that is now an open question. And so Alaska is looking into it. So we're seeing that elsewhere, we have some pretty big problems that are out there. In Arizona, there were hundreds of undeliverable Arizona ballots that we just discovered after the last primary, which took place earlier this week. And it's more than hundreds. In fact, it's 1,300 mail-in ballots that were marked undeliverable. Okay, the Postal Service just didn't deliver these ballots. Trump was also personally alerted about this after hundreds of ballots were marked undeliverable ahead of the primary. Weird. Even though the people who were living at those addresses said that, yeah, that's our address. Somebody in Arizona, Gina Swoboda, we know who she is, she said this is a critical threat to the system. It's about everybody being disenfranchised. There were 1,357 mail ballots that were marked undeliverable in Navajo County, which is a smaller county in Arizona, but that's a big number, saying this was ahead of the July 21st primary. Others had said. Now, the number is higher than previously known. There was a telephone interview they did yesterday, and it all came out. So this guy, Lermas, who is now the chief deputy recorder up there, Jose, he said, quote, all these voters were sent a notice letting them know their mail was returned, and that was a forwardable letter. So hopefully get to them wherever they're at so they can respond and let us know whether their address was correct or not. But this is a battleground state. We're gearing up for the November 3rd election. We got critical races coming up, Attorney General, Secretary of State. We've got various Congress people like Eli Crane in Arizona, who's now got a Democrat challenger. Early ballots, the way this went down, were sent through the mail, the U.S. Postal Service. And you know what type of improvement in the processes would help validate where mail is coming from and where it's going? Oh, yeah, Trump's executive order, where they said the Postal Service will update the mail procedures and they'll add barcodes to the outside of the envelopes so that they can scan them in and then scan them out. And all of the mail-in balloting will have a specific logo on there so that we can treat it as a special high priority mail package. But they don't want that to happen. They're suing everywhere to stop Trump's EO. And we've got Sparkle and others who are preventing that from going into effect. So another good reason why we should just have, in-person voting with actual presence and ID checks and actual physical ballots happening rather than the mail. But the Postal Service was not delivering these things. They began coming back on June 30th. Voters throughout the entire county were affected, and the Arizona Republic, who's reporting on this, reviewed a photo of an early ballot envelope that was addressed to somebody in Navajo County. And when they got it back, it was marked by a yellow sticker on there. Postal Service slapped it on there and said, postage due, return to sender, vacant, unable to forward, which is interesting. It's like somebody didn't pay for the stamps. The envelope had been marked received on July 31st. What? 2026, it's July 24th. So how did the envelope get received in the future? And the county recorder got that. They stamped it into the future. Very strange. Doesn't make any sense. So voters who did not receive their primary mail-in ballots would have needed to vote in person, or they didn't vote, either during the early voting period or on election day. And so it looks like maybe 1,300 people were disenfranchised. Swoboda said that she worried that voters were disenfranchised, sounds like it, especially those who rely on mail-in voting. They can't get to a polling place, and they didn't even know that their ballot wasn't going to get delivered to them. Swoboda is an elections expert. All right, so the federal government is now looking into the issue. Trump got notified about this. They're saying, what's going on here? The White House did not respond to a request for comment. In a primetime address, Trump said, yep, we got a lot of election problems. One way to fix this, Save America Act. And we passed an executive order to help update the procedures across the nation. Now we're being sued into oblivion. And we have foreign-born dual citizen judges who are preventing any imposition of the new policies. But one person called Marshall, the Navajo County recorder, he said that 900 ballots had been marked undeliverable. He said, you know, a lot of our voters are upset about this. People are calling and they're saying, my address is correct. And the addresses, 99% of them are accurate according to our system, but we don't understand why it's not, why they're not reaching their homes. Marshall is a Republican member. They call it the far right, which is just a fake term. Arizona Freedom Caucus back in the legislature. He replaced another recorder who resigned. That other guy was out after pleading guilty to road rage. It's Navajo County. Marshall said that the ballots were not about and not reaching Shiloh, Winslow, Snowflake, rural areas. A lot of those areas are pretty red. Navajo County's pretty blue. So he called the Postal Service. He said, hey, why aren't you delivering our mail to our rural voters in Arizona? Then he said, well, there was a misunderstanding that we were not paying our postage bills. He says that's ridiculous. We do pay our postage bills, and we should have had our ballots sent out. So the county recorder's office did not hear back from the Postal Service. USPS did not respond to a request for comment. The local Democrat and Republican parties also called the voters. Parties may purchase a curable ballot file, which includes names and information. All said and done, Navajo County, they cast 16,000 ballots, according to returns. The county is home to 72,000 registered voters, and it's a bunch of American Indians. It's Navajo County. According to 2024, we've seen the demographics there, and you're not allowed to be racist in voting discrimination. So Arizona's looking into it. Attorney General Chris Mays out there said, we're seeking information to determine if we need to do anything else about this. Adrian Fontes, the secretary, he's also looking into it. And apparently Navajo has not been contacted by either of them. So it's not good. Yeah, it's not good, which is why we got to fix this election problem. And we've long suspected that, the Postal Service, it may not be that reliable. You can have a couple of those Postal Service people just kind of coming around, going to the very red zip codes and just kind of tossing the ballots out right out the window of their mail card. Gone, 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 undeliverable, gone, gone, gone. Oh, and so hang on, the article is not scrolling. My apologies on that. Sometimes this whole baby freezes up. Let me just swap this over right here and then make sure that it is scrolling for us. So we went through this article. I hit the highlights, but that's what we've got. So my apologies. Thank you for letting me know that that wasn't scrolling. Hopefully it is now unfrozen for the remainder of the show. Sometimes it does that. Probably the feds don't want us talking about the Postal Service. But okay, so all that happened, and now we've got Harmeet out saying, people who are failing to comply with federal law, they may not only be in violation of the law, but they may be in violation of criminal law as well. And she says across the country, our government has identified hundreds of thousands of ineligible voters so far, with at least hundreds of non-citizens voting here, at least. New Jersey is no exception. And so now civil rights and the DOJ is investigating. Here is Harmeet explaining.
Do you plan to take this fight to the Supreme Court?
Well, we do. It's actually closer to 30 states. 20 states have given us their voter rolls voluntarily, and we've found hundreds of thousands of people on those voter rolls who shouldn't have been there. Now, since the governor made this announcement, we've opened up an investigation. We asked her to disclose to us the names of the 6,600 individuals who were wrongfully put on the voter rolls, and then the 400 who voted knowing that they weren't entitled to. And today she hasn't responded to us yet, but she did tell the New York Times and others in New Jersey that she wasn't going to give us that information because, quote unquote, we would weaponize it and she doesn't trust us with the data. Well, who can't be trusted with data, Governor Cheryl? It seems like it's actually New Jersey because these people said they weren't entitled to vote, and then you put them on the voter rolls in your state, blaming the vendor, calling it a glitch, etc. It is the job of the election officials, not some data vendor, to determine citizenship when they put people on the voter rolls. That's federal law. And it also sounds like, Liz, the state allowed these people to stay on the voter rolls for more than a year after they knew that they weren't legally entitled. That is a violation of federal law, too, federal criminal law. So we're looking at this very carefully.
Federal criminal law, which is why New Jersey doesn't want any help from the feds. Oh, no, we'll do our own internal investigation. You can trust us. Well, you said to trust you originally when you said that there were no problems with your rolls. Turns out that trust was misplaced because you do have non-citizens on your rolls. And it's worse than that. They voted, 400 of them. So are you going to prosecute them? No, you're just going to move on, do your own internal research, and then say that there really is no there there. The whole problem's fixed. Sorry about that misunderstanding. And then run additional elections. And so we can't trust you, which is why we need further action. And Congress is doing that now. Nearly 20 members of Congress, led by Congressman JVD, Jeff Van Drew, out of New Jersey, just sent a letter to Mikey Sherrill demanding answers on how 6,600 non-citizens ended up on New Jersey's voter rolls. And this comes in conjunction with all of the other probes that have now been opened into New Jersey. We saw previously DOJ's looking into them. One congressman wants a special prosecutor appointed by the federal government. We've got a new request for a J6 committee to be launched inside New Jersey at the state level. And others want a full audit of all of the contracts with Idemia, the vendor who's responsible for interfacing with the election systems, not only in New Jersey, but everywhere else, many other states. The American public deserves to know if any election was decided by a margin smaller than the illegal ballot count, and if New Jersey will support proof of citizenship for voter registration. We look forward to hearing back on this by August 21st. And here's what the letter says. Going over to the Honorable Mikey Sherrill, saying, all right, Governor, we write regarding your administration's alarming announcement, alarming indeed, that a failure within the New Jersey Motor Vehicle Commission and the voter registration system improperly added 6,600 non-citizens to the rolls and enabled roughly 400 of those people to cast ballots in elections, something they said was virtually zero. Now, according to information released by your administration, these people expressly said no. Okay, now every statement they make is now on the record. Okay, so then when things start to not match, you can identify the gaps in their story, which should expose the fraud. They were asked, are you a citizen? When they were applying for driver's licenses or ID cards, they said no, according to you. Now, despite those answers, a software failure reportedly transmitted their information for voter registration going back between June 23 and June 24. And again, the look back window is just tiny. We've seen and literally looked at the contract terms for Idemia. It goes all the way back to 2010. So how long was this going on? Why was there a checkbox that apparently wasn't being validated? They say you guys did it. Idemia says that's not our responsibility. We just fill out the form, we create the form. You got to process it on your end. So if they're saying these things and they're marking no, who is then changing it to yes or letting it go through regardless? Now, this was not a minor clerical discrepancy. It was a catastrophic breakdown of the most basic safeguard in our election system, ensuring that only eligible American citizens are actually registered and permitted to vote. How do you know this was just a software glitch and not a nefarious act? She doesn't. It, in fact, is probably a nefarious act. Somebody somewhere had some intentionality to make this happen, and they just are blaming a software glitch, hopefully hoping that everybody just ignores it and moves on. And as we saw, Homeland says that they've identified more than 35,000, not 6,600. And I don't know what their look back window goes to, but the numbers are massive. Now, New Jersey's systems failed at several consecutive stages. The state registered, first of all, thousands of people who had affirmatively said, according to you, that they were not citizens. And what if they did say they were citizens? Okay, these are like the honest people who checked no. What if you have other people who are actually not citizens who say, yes, we are citizens? They can't even catch the people who say, I'm actually not eligible to vote. They say, we don't care. It's good enough for us. So come on in here, have a ballot. What about the people who lied? Did they just say, oh, everybody who says yes just gets waved on in without actually checking? Probably. And so they said, we're not citizens. You still put them on the voter rolls. Then you gave them the ability to actually get a ballot. So you shipped them a ballot. And then as another breach, they cast it and then you accepted it. And apparently you counted hundreds of those ballots before discovering the problem years later. And they would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for the meddling Trump and Harmeet Dhillon, who are saying, we're going to unmask what's going on here. We're going to now warn you. We want the list. You don't give them to us. We're going to investigate you for being co-conspirators in federal election fraud. Then all of a sudden they come out and they say, oh, yeah, we got some problems on our list. Now, notably, they write to Mikey. The state's own vendor, Idemia, apparently the French company, has publicly stated that its role in all of this was limited to transmission. All we did was send the registration information that we collected through the MVS, the motor vehicle system, and then that you guys at the Division of Elections, quote, was ultimately responsible for verifying eligibility. Now, with information submitted by Idemia, still requiring validation and adjudication by you. So they gather it, send it to you, you have to process it. Now, if that is accurate, and we suspect it is, this indicates the failure was not confined to a vendor's software error, but extended to the state's own eligibility verification process, which may not even exist at all. This raises the question of why individuals who had affirmatively identified themselves as non-citizens were nonetheless validated and still adjudicated as eligible voters, given ballots, and many of them cast ballots. So Republicans have been sounding the alarm for years about this. You guys were screaming at us, calling us conspiracy theorists, throwing us off the internet, prosecuting people, throwing them in jail, trying to take away their law licenses like you did with Jeffrey Clark, about weaknesses in voter registration systems. We've said that there are inadequate voter roll maintenance processes. We've also complained about the danger that non-citizens may actually be on the list and that they may be permitted to vote in national elections, all of it illegal under federal law. Now, these concerns have too often, thank you, been dismissed as exaggerated or unfounded. We're all crazy. New Jersey's admission demonstrates that these vulnerabilities are real and that even a system supposedly designed to screen out ineligible applicants can fail on a massive scale. Or it was working as designed until they had to change course. So House Republicans have acted to address these vulnerabilities. We passed the Save America Act, the Safeguard America Voter Eligibility Act. The legislation would actually require documentary proof of citizenship when registering to vote in federal elections, not just a simple checkbox. And also require government-issued ID when actually casting a ballot. And so your announcement raises significant concerns about the integrity of New Jersey's system. Simply removing the affected registrations and then blaming a software vendor is wholly insufficient. What about the other people who lied and said, I am a citizen, or were mistaken and just check the box because they're flying through the form. Did you even check them? It's a whole other category of people that they haven't even addressed. New Jersey voters deserve a complete accounting of how this failure occurred, why it remained undetected, which elections were affected, whether additional non-citizens are still registered, and big one, who will be held responsible? So accordingly, we'd like you to answer the following questions for us. What testing, quality control procedures, audits, or certification requirements were conducted before the software was deployed? Did you check it? Did you test it? Did you run someone through who's a citizen and validate it? Run someone through who wasn't and invalid? What'd you do? Idemia has publicly stated that all they did was transmit the data that they got, and that you guys were responsible for adjudicating the data before the registration was effective. Do you and your administration agree with this characterization? Are you calling them liars, or did you lie to us? And if so, what specific validation and adjudication steps did elections fail to perform when you approved 6,600 people? And why did those failures go undetected for up to a year? We'd also like you to please provide the exact number of affected registrations and the primary, general, municipal, school board, special, or federal elections where these people all cast ballots. Please also provide a breakdown of the countries of citizenship for these 6,600 people. Did any single country or group of countries account for this? Were there a bunch of Somalians or something in there? What was it? Has the state determined whether any affected race was decided by a small margin here? Please give us some updates on how many unlawfully cast ballots were in that jurisdiction. Was any race decided by 100 votes, such that 400 non-citizens might have impacted the margin? Have all 6,600 registrations been removed and deemed ineligible? When did that happen? What corrective action was taken? What notice have been provided to the individuals on this list, particularly those who may have been led by the state's error to believe that they were legally eligible to vote? And that's like a cop-out. Okay, you know you're a non-citizen. And you're like, well, they sent me a ballot, so I guess I'll just vote. It's like you get, clothes that aren't yours at the dry cleaner. You're like, well, it fits, so I'll take it home. You're supposed to turn it back in, Will the complete investigative report, including your methodology and supporting data, be released to us publicly? I doubt it. Will your administration cooperate with requests from Congress? No. The DOJ? No. Homeland? No. And other federal authorities investigating any of this? No. We know the answer to that one. Does your admin support requiring documentary proof of citizenship? Of course not. They're Democrats. If not, please explain what alternative safeguard would have prevented the failure disclosed by your administration. Good question. Well, you can trust us next time. We don't need to make any changes. This was just a glitch. There really is no systemic problem. There are no procedural issues that need to be reconciled. It's just a little glitch. What administrative, technological, contractual, or legislative changes will be implemented before the 2026 general to ensure that this doesn't happen again? And then lastly, what state officials or contractors will be held accountable for this breakdown? Can you name a single person? And will New Jersey seek reimbursement, damages? Like if you say this was a glitch from them, and you violated the rights of 400 voters, because every one of these people who cast a ballot is casting a ballot that essentially cancels out somebody else's vote. So their voting rights, their representation in democracy was all destroyed. Remember how upset they get, by the way? You try to create any election integrity mechanism, they say you're going to disenfranchise somebody. It's the end of the world. Judges will actually latch onto that and they'll say nobody can have election integrity anywhere because somebody might not know what to do and they might get disenfranchised. This is one of the main arguments that Mark Elias and the Democracy Docket folks use is they say, well, a college student's going to be confused if they have to have ID, or a woman who changes her name won't be able to bring her court order or whatever, and she'll be disenfranchised. So we can't have any ID anywhere at any time, lest somebody's vote not count. 400 people's votes just got invalidated. In New Jersey, all of those were counted according to what we know now. So how will you remedy that? And if you're going to blame Idemia for this, then surely they're going to pay damages to you, right? If they're the ones found to be at fault. They say they're not at fault. And so maybe Idemia will sue them back for breach of contract or for defamation, for slandering their business. Also, reimbursement, any other remedies, like if you blame them, what are they going to do to fix this problem? Or maybe they're not to blame. Now, the right to vote belongs to citizens of America, and every unlawfully cast ballot diminishes the votes of eligible New Jersey voters. Exactly. And so confidence in elections depends not on dismissing legitimate concerns, but on transparent systems, enforceable safeguards, thorough investigations, meaningful accountability. And we would like you to provide to Congress these written responses no later than August 21, 2026, signed by a bunch of people that we know here. Van Drew, Smith, Fine, Malio Takis, Mike Lawler, you know who he is, Abe Amadei from Arizona. We got Claudia Tenney, Elijah Crane, Max Miller, Clay Fuller, and many others out in Congress sending that directly over to Mikey Sherrill, governor of New Jersey. So we'll see what they do with this. They might just throw it into the shredder and say, what are you going to do about it? But Congress should do something about it. They should form their own committee on election security and election fraud and start to pump these people for actual information. Liz Cheney could send subpoenas to anybody that she wanted anywhere, even though they were illegally constituted. So they should use those same tools to their advantage to solve this problem. Now, here was another one from Libs of TikTok. Got this FOIA information, email. And this was also sent in the aftermath of the 2020 election. And this one came out from Washington, King County, Washington. And there's a lot of these anecdotes now coming up that this problem is actually evident in other states. And we are only now kind of doing an audit, right, where we can comb through the records and identify in New Jersey, 6,600, or in Alaska, 3,000. But here's just another sample. And of course, we've always known they're not checking. They say all the time, it's not happening. Did you check? Well, why would we check if it's not happening? Well, you have to check in order to confirm that it is or is not happening, you know? And they say, but it's not. You're a conspiracy theorist. Who won the election? Joe Biden won it, so get out of here. So it's nonstop. But here's another email on the record. And this actual email looks like this was sent back before 2020. Weird. October 25th, 2019. And Julie Wise, this woman seen right here, kingcounty.gov elections, seemingly knows that there are people who are on the list who should not be on the list. Saying in this email to a bunch of people from Julie Wise, CCing a whole slew of people, saying, hi, dear voter education fund partners. I wanted to take a minute to share some information about an issue that several stakeholders and partners have contacted us about. Voters who are not citizens getting inadvertently registered, another glitch, to vote at the Department of Licensing. Oh, you're kidding. How come this keeps happening everywhere? Everywhere you look, Arizona it happens, New Jersey, it's now in Washington. Now, let me start by saying that I am also deeply concerned about this. Every year, we hear from a small number of voters who receive a ballot because they accidentally got registered, another glitch, while getting a driver's license or ID. These voters are often absolutely terrified of the impact this could have for their immigration status because it's not legal to register to vote and vote if you're a citizen. We see on the N400 form, the one that asks about communism that Mamdani lied on, he and others are asked a question, have you voted in American elections? If you say yes, you're going to maybe be charged with a crime. All of your immigration proceedings are in big trouble. So a certain select group of people are very unhappy about it, right, when they learn about this. But there is another group of people, many of whom we've covered here, who do vote and vote in multiple elections. And they've been prosecuted. We've covered maybe a dozen of them here in recent months, like not even over a long period of time, dozens that the DOJ is now investigating. As they're going through immigration proceedings, they check the box, no, I never voted in an election. They're now actually checking. Let me see, where'd you live? Let me go check the voter rolls. Oh, you're on there. You cast ballots in 2020, 2022, 2024. So it's not like every non-citizen who's going through immigration is like petrified. There are many of them who are lying about their status. Look at Mamdani, look at Ilhan, when they're coming in and they just get waved in or had been getting waved in until very recently. So she says, of course, if we are hearing from 15 to 20, we know that there are many more individuals out there who are not contacting us. Exactly right, Julie. Many more who are not contacting us. So to help with this, here are a few things that we are doing. We're working with the Department of Licensing. I've raised this issue with them in the past. I'm still going to continue to do that. And you know, messages like this would be nice from them. Like it would be nice. I don't know if she's still there, Julie Wise, but she could have every time Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas, or somebody on the left comes out and says, never happens. You're making much ado about nothing. Then they could say, actually, it is happening. We had a whole email about it. I've got a bunch of meetings here and remedies to fix this. In fact, I have a meeting scheduled with key contacts over there. What I will say is that recent conversations, their team was aware of the issue and the potential consequences, and they seemed very committed to ensuring as consistent of training and processes as possible, right? So the software is not doing it. It's the people that are doing it. They're not being trained appropriately. Now, that said, I think we can all understand how challenging it can be to ensure continuity of so many staff and election locations. It's very complicated to just not add. It's like your whole job, really. Make sure the voter lists are secure, not complicated. As a result, I will be asking my staff to try to get any information they can when they receive these kinds of calls to figure out if there are particular branches or areas that are creating more inadvertent registrations than others. What is the root cause of this? It would be incredibly helpful if you could also try to get those details if you're hearing about this type of situation and share them with our language services and community engagement team. We're also sending letters to those affected. This includes being clear their registration was unintentional. We're happy to serve as a resource. And also, we need some legislative remedies on this. Now, I don't know that there are state-level legislative remedies, but we are exploring that possibility. Yeah, that would be good. You know, like the Save America Act would be good. Something we've been screaming about for months now. Ideally, we could codify getting accidentally registered due to a misunderstanding, and that should not have any impact on citizenship. But with a federal agency, I don't know what our options are. So that's her remedy. Her remedy is to pass a law that says, if this accidentally happens, it's not going to harm you. The remedy is not to actually fix the problem, to get to the root cause and actually make the process more robust. For example, if rather than checking a checkbox, it might be something very minor like these dumb bureaucrats in Washington, they get these forms. It's a little box, citizen, not a citizen, okay, undefined, whatever. So they just process it, click, 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 click. What if you made it so that you had to tie before you click approve a picture of a birth certificate? Oh, wow. Or something that validated that you're an actual citizen. Has to be a part of the file. You think that might prevent some false positives from going through? I would suspect it would. But they don't want to worry about that because they'd rather just say, well, if we do it, then we just want to make sure it doesn't actually harm you in your immigration processes. So as always, please let me know if you have any concerns for how else we can support our immigrant and refugee communities. Okay, so it's all about people getting freaked out that they're getting registered and it might harm their immigration proceedings. And by the way, back then, okay, nobody was checking these things. Even under Trump 1, we've got individuals in these agencies who are just, kind of moving these things through, just kind of passing everybody through and enabling this to continue on. So in solidarity with the immigrant and refugee communities, Julie Wise, Director, King County Elections. And so that's what we've got out there in Washington. And also, this is being admitted by the Maine Secretary of State. We got Steve Robinson saying, I am once again reminding you that the Maine Secretary of State called Shenna Bellows, the same person who tried an unconstitutional ploy to kick Trump off the 2024 ballot, admitted on Mark Elias's YouTube that non-citizens are being registered to vote in Maine. She later lied to the state legislature and said she never said this thing, even though it is on video. So as always, it's not happening. Then, okay, it is happening, but it's very minor. It's insignificant. Then we're now at the stage where it's happening and it's not minor. It's not insignificant at all. It's in fact something that is pretty serious, such that the governor of New Jersey, for example, comes out and holds a press briefing to address the whole thing on the record. Here's Shenna Bellows, who is the analog of Jenna Griswold, who was trying to kick Trump off the ballot back in 2020. Trump, of course, was screaming about election integrity problems. They lied through their teeth. They knew what was going on, and they just denied it.
I'm sure there are, in some isolated instances, some non-citizens may be on the rolls. I'm sure there are, in some isolated instances, some non-citizens may be on the rolls. I'm sure there are.
There are. Yeah, there are. And so Maine, coming for you next to see who else is on that list. Now, here's another one from Mike Testa. He's out in New Jersey, and he serves the first legislative district out there in the Senate. And he says, we still don't know a lot about this. Where did the 400 non-citizens, which is just the tip of the iceberg, who were illegally allowed to vote, where did they actually vote? It's time to convene a committee with subpoena power. Let's go. Give the public the absolute truth. Restore the public's trust in our election process and get to the bottom of this massive fraud.
It was about 4 years ago that myself and other senators like Senator Anthony Bucco and Senator Kristen Corrado introduced bill packages for election integrity. And again, just like Ms. Collette said, we were labeled bigots, we were labeled crazy, that this isn't happening, and we were told that this would never happen.
Yeah.
And yet, we know that at least 400 individuals did in fact vote that were not eligible to vote. And I'm from Cumberland County. We recently had 2 elections, one in 2024 that was decided by 49 votes, one in 2025 that was decided by approximately 150 votes. That is unacceptable. We don't know where those 400 voters voted. I think it is high time that we convene special committees of the legislature that have subpoena powers, and we can get to the bottom of this. It's about
So now we know that it's happening a lot, but they say it's not consequential. So it's not happening, then it's happening, but it's very rare and not even worth looking at. Then it is happening, but at a much bigger scale, and it's still not impacting the outcome. Now it may have actually impacted the outcome, according to this person. So it just gets worse by the day, which is why we do need to do exactly what he said, have all options available and deployed. Special prosecutor at the federal level, committees at the state level, criminal inquiry by Harmeet and the DOJ folks, and a full audit through and through across the nation to fix the lists, check them twice, find out who's naughty and who's nice, and restore sanity to our system. So we'll keep our eye on this as the problems continue to emerge, but we're seeing some good progress here. And what's so beautiful about this is when they do come out on the record and make some admissions, then you can corroborate what they've said. And just like a cross-examination in a criminal trial, you can start to peel back the lies to get to the truth. And so we're going to continue to do that here. We've got a demand to get these answers back by August 21st. And of course, every day that goes by, we're inching closer to the election. There's a lot of incentive to not fix this before the election if, as we suspect, they're the beneficiaries of these problems. But we're staying on it. Thank you for joining and subscribing as we do. All right, now let's turn our attention to the Biden backstab. And this one is also crazy because Joe and Mayorkas were monsters. Let's get into it. The Biden backstab gets worse every day. On his way out, he was doing everything humanly possible to try to wreck the country and to stop the president, Trump, from coming in and fixing the harms that he caused. And now we see that on his way out, he and his team were contemplating a plot to try to create an extra 3.1 million TPSers so that Trump could not remove them. Eric Schmitt gave us the details on this. There was a briefing memo that was dropped. He newly obtained it, and he's disclosing it for our purview. And in addition to this, we see that there are still judges out there, like this judge called Brian Murphy, who Joe Biden appointed back December 6, 2024, who are doing everything humanly possible to stop the actual TPS cancellations from happening. We saw the Supreme Court about a month ago said that the executive branch has unfettered discretion to cancel TPS, and Murphy again today just overruled the Supreme Court. So we'll come back to that. But the administration is utilizing some alternative strategies, and in this case, may, according to some reports, have just imposed $84 billion in fines for people who will not remove themselves, hitting them in their pocketbook. And so we'll come back to that story as well, which is a big fat number. But here's how it started. On the way out, Biden was advised on how he could block Trump's deportation. We'll just give them legal status, including people who were Tren de Aragua members, giving them all TPS. They knew and still know that TPS, according to the judges, is not temporary at all. It's essentially permanent. And so this memo went down to the president from Joe Biden's senior advisors. And you know it's a Joe Biden letter because Joe really can't read, you know. So when they write memos to him, they have to say you in capitalized letters or your in capitalized letters. Otherwise, he's like, who am I? Where am I? What day is it? Where's my ice cream? So they're very clear about who's doing what. You know, you stand here and you call on this person and more. And so we'll read through the full memo, but here's the kind of background from Eric Schmitt, who got this. He says the memo, which appears to be misdated, by the way, it's currently dated as January 2nd, 2024, which would be a year before the 24 election. So it's probably 25, which is the correct date. So January 2nd, probably 25. Trump's coming in on 2021. He shares the memo, which appears to be misdated, is from Biden's, quote, senior advisors, AKA the actual president. In the waning days of the lame duck presidency, they said, Joe, this is for you. It was the pitch to expand TPS, quote, before you leave office. His team was searching for ways to lock in the mass invasion, the migration regime, before Trump came in. TPS, as we know, gives foreign nationals work permits and protection from deportation for some stupid reason, forever. And a redesignation expands that shield to the newly arrived migrants. So they're just going to classify all the illegals that they let invade and just say, oh, now you're here on TPS. Now, Biden's team was considering making millions of people eligible, then leaving Trump and the new admin to come in and process the claims. The memo openly discusses rushing TPS extensions and redesignations and new designations before January 20th, when Trump comes in, specifically to shield people from, quote, President-elect Trump's planned mass deportations. A total stab in the back. Like the American people decided we're going to elect Trump because we never believed that Joe Biden legitimately won in the first place, didn't buy all the J6 crap, didn't buy all of the criminal prosecutions or the allegations of abuse, blah, blah, blah. And on their way out, wanted to ensconce their invasion in law. Now, it frames the lame ducks team's actions as a deliberate barrier. We're going to read the full thing. The memo also states that the motive, and says it openly, what we need to do is appease the leftists. People who supported Biden wanted to protect migrants from Trump. Trump was coming in to deport everybody. They were asking a defeated Biden to obstruct immigration mandates that the people had just delivered. Now, the Venezuela redesignation alone would have shielded another 455,000 people from deportation, including, presumably, Tren de Aragua gangbangers, who they love. And the admin laughed off possibly unleashing a Venezuelan terrorist gang right inside America as a partisan argument. We're going to read it. So here's what they wanted to hit. And so they wanted 3.5 million. Here's what they actually got done. They wanted 455,000 Venezuelans like each one of these numbers is about the size of Wyoming. Like Wyoming's like 550, I think the number, shifts. So like a whole new US state of Venezuelans, a whole new US state of Nicaraguans, and another 600,000 Ecuadorians, and then 3 Wyomings worth of Guatemalans. Okay, so it's essentially like adding in 3, 4, 5, 6 new states worth of people with the stroke of a pen. And then Ukraine, Afghanistan, and the Sudan. Now, it would have been de facto amnesty by executive decree. They actually fleshed it all out in there. Now, the most disturbing part of all of this, says Schmitt, is Biden's senior advisors recommended that he create 2.1 million new, so they were going to lock those people in under existing protocols, new TPS designees in the last few weeks of the presidency. They knew that they didn't have time. It would have taken 6 months for them to go get new TPS applications and push it through, but they were going to do it anyways. Now, luckily, that never happened, and we have been deporting the Ecuadorians and the Guatemalans back to their countries. But this is what they were going to add in, right? So a 600,000 plus another 1.5. So just redesignate all of these people in this top list. Then we'll add in this other list as newbies. So then a week after receiving this memo, Biden did it. Not all of it, but he extended TPS for nearly 1 million non-citizens on his way out, protecting them from deportation, showing that this memo led to a concrete mass migration action and brought them all in. January 10th, 2025, days before Trump comes in, Biden once again extends protections for the Venezuelans, the El Salvadorans, and the Ukrainians. Yeah. So Biden tried to turn TPS into 3.1 million people into a deportation shield. He wanted to protect Tren de Aragua. He wanted to trap Trump in years of litigation, even though all of that was rejected. We saw what he did with the Haitians under the bridge in Texas and more. So Eric Schmitt says, I'm going to keep fighting TPS until we get the job done. And he got the memo from the archivist of the United States as part of a special access request that he made as the chairman of the subcommittee on the Constitution. And the full memo is listed here. And so let me just share with you what is inside. He gave us the highlights, but this is what Joe Biden got. January 2nd, presumably 2025. They were in such a rush, or maybe they had a Guatemalan do the date. I don't know. So the memo provides background info on TPS, including actions taken by your administration, actions by the previous Trump administration, members of Congress, and other leaders. They want you to expand TPS before you leave. They explain what TPS is. We all know what it is. And you may redesignate these things. You may extend these things and more. And we're asking you and your administration to do this. We have a bunch of these people who should all be shamed eternally. The Congressional Hispanic Caucus said, we want to codify the invasion. Shame. Senator Bennett from Colorado, Booker from New Jersey, Cortez Masto, Durbin, Sex Freak Hirono from Hawaii, Lujan, Duckworth, Padilla. Mayors and a range of advocacy organizations want you to add additional countries before Trump comes in. They also want you to add in and redesignate Venezuela, Nicaragua, Sudan, Ukraine, and Afghanistan. They also want new countries, just like made up, okay? It's temporary protected status, like you had an earthquake in Haiti. Oh, it's terrible down there. Oh, 15 years later, okay, come in. And so there's a civil war in your country or whatever. That's not what this was about. They just said, we need you to do it. Just exploit this provision of the law so that we can get the right demographics here. We want to add in Ecuador. Was there an earthquake in Ecuador in January 2025? I don't think so. What about Guatemala? Don't think so, but they wanted that anyways. They say that granting this will protect, quote, vulnerable people, foreigners, from Trump's planned mass deportations, which we all voted for. That's why he won, including some who lived in, quote, mixed status families. They say these protections are likely to hold in court, and they are, because we've got Biden judges who are literally preventing any cancellations of TPS from going into effect, even though the Supreme Court overruled them. Openly insubordinate to the Supreme Court, Brian Murphy, the Biden judge. And while it's impossible to predict what's going to happen in future litigation, prior federal litigation brought by advocates were successful. They stopped Trump the first time because they said that during the first term, they couldn't justify the cancellations. Now that issue's solved. We went up to the Supreme Court. We're not going to deal with lower level judges saying, I don't think your reason's good enough, or I don't like the conditions back in Haiti. Don't really care. You're not the judge. You're not the Secretary of State. You're not Homeland Security. You're not the president. So go run for that office if you'd like to do that, but you've got no power under the Article 3 courts to stop the president from doing the will of the people who elected him. The litigation also became moot, and so we don't really know what would happen. They won this the first term. Now, while TPS has historically had bipartisan support because Republicans backstab us as well, many Republicans have recently said that TPS is amnesty, because it is. And you've got Ilhan Salazar and others who are now calling for extensions of this indefinitely because it was never temporary to begin with. They say that TPS encourages illegal immigration, true, and they're validating that by then saying we're going to add them all into TPS, even though there is no need to protect them from something. They're just here illegally. And so should Homeland redesignate these people, Republicans are going to say that you gave amnesty to Tren de Aragua, because they did. And Trump has threatened to revoke TPS for the Haitians when he comes in, and he's done that. So you guys have made the extension, and you've done it before, and so this would be kind of the same. Because the adjudication, though, takes 6 months, any individuals made newly eligible will not be adjudicated by your administration. Joe Biden, again, needs that for his broken brain. So right now, there are currently 16 grants of TPS in place covering 1.2 million people. Of these, 10 were in place when you took office. Your admin has designated new countries. 7 new countries came in under Joe: Afghanistan, Cameroon, Ethiopia, Burma, Lebanon, Ukraine, and Venezuela. You also extended this for Haiti several times. And the previous admin, Trump, tried to terminate a bunch of these the first time, got stalled out. Courts issued preliminary injunctions blocking Trump. Again, that is now moot because of SCOTUS. Trump canceled the first time Sudan, Nicaragua, Haiti, El Salvador, Nepal, and Honduras. Then you took actions to resolve this litigation. Once Biden came back in, he rescinded Trump's cancellations. Then in October, Trump stated that he was going to revoke the Haitians. They can go back home. Based on the statement, the incoming admin is likely going to rescind these things, but we may be able to potentially stop or significantly slow these things, or they may when they come in. So all of the 16 current designations will expire in 25 or 26. El Salvador is the only current designation that requires a decision before you leave here, Joe. Homeland and Secretary of State, they plan to extend this, and that's going to protect another 1/2 Wyoming, 234,000 people, 234,000 people from El Salvador. So that's the full list. And of course, they did extend a bunch of things, as we saw in the news article. And right now, the cancellations of TPS are being blocked by a federal judge. This just dropped today. Once again, Brian Murphy, an activist judge that we've talked about here before, out from Massachusetts, where other hack judges come from, are doing everything they can to stop this from happening. And it just dropped today. Let's not forget that previously we saw, courtesy of Eric W. on X, who does great legal reporting over there. Highly recommend him. We'll repost his comment at the top of our timeline so you can give him a follow. But he says, U.S. Supreme Court, what did they say back on June 25th, 2026? We read it here, the entire thing. District courts do not have jurisdiction. They do not have authority to review a presidential decision to end TPS. Okay? You can't cancel it. They went through the law. They reviewed what Congress wrote in the statutes and said, this has been removed from you. You don't have oversight over this decision. That decision is made by the executive branch. So stop doing this. Then what happens is yesterday, July 23rd, 2026, Brian Murphy from Massachusetts, a judge who should be impeached and removed from office for bad behavior, is actually ignoring and openly insubordinate to the Supreme Court. And he wrote this in the docket. He said, let's just pull up the full docket here, courtesy of Eric W., so we can read it in some nice font. And you can see this litigation has been going on for quite some time. Here's what the ultimate decision was. He dropped this one. And, oh, this is also from Judge Patty B. Saris. Let's see where this case is being assigned. Okay, so this one looks like it might be a different judge, Patty B. Saris. Although people are saying it came ultimately from Brian Murphy. You get the point. Both of them are hacks. So here you see plaintiffs have moved for an administrative stay pending resolution of this complaint. So they sue back December 2025. Don't cancel us. Plaintiffs have moved for an administrative stay pending resolution of their motion to amend their complaint. So it's an administrative pause. Now, as previously noted by this court, a court may issue an administrative stay in an exercise of its docket management authority. Okay, so I'm not actually doing anything other outside of Article 3. I'm not impinging on the executive branch. I'm just managing my docket. So administrative stays are not a reflection of the merits. All it is to allow the court time to consider the merits of a case that cannot be successfully or appropriately evaluated in haste. There's nothing to evaluate. The Supreme Court already came back down and made that decision, saying after review, the court allows the motion for a stay. And so to preserve the status quo, you see that the termination of TPS for South Sudan is stayed, subject to further order of the court, pending resolution of the motion. And during the period of the stay of the termination from the executive branch shall be null, void, and of no legal effect. This order is effective immediately upon court's receipt of this. And I think the reason it's a different judge is because there was like 3 different cases that were all bundled together into one. And yeah, it was. If you're confused by the caption, there are 3 cases together in front of different judges. That's why we've got several judges who are acting on this. So we've got South Sudan is one case, somebody suing to cancel that one. We've got Somalia, someone suing for that one, someone suing for Ethiopia. So it actually hits 3 different countries, and we've got basically a similar order across the board. So another one out of Massachusetts, Allison Dale Burroughs, and then the other one, I'm presuming, is Brian Murphy, because everyone is singling him out, including the DOJ. He said, James Percival at the Department of Homeland Security, general counsel there, he was also sharing this today, furious. Another rogue district judge just postponed the termination of TPS for South Sudan. This is an open defiance of the Supreme Court, plain and simple. And every one of those people who has a child here during this pause will all be citizens, thanks to John Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett's. So James Percival says it's Brian Murphy, the Biden judge. He just entered an order preventing us from terminating TPS for Ethiopia. Why? An administrative stay. How long is he going to need to deliberate this decision? There's nothing to deliberate. The Supreme Court already said Trump can cancel it. They had a meltdown after it happened. Articles all over the place. But it validates and vindicates what Joe Biden's people said, his senior advisors said, that we'll just stall these out. We'll just use the judges to commit a literal judicial insurrection. These judges are engaged in mutiny against the Supreme Court and an attack on America. It must stop. And we'll see what they do. They're, of course, the lawyers who will presumably take this right up to the Supreme Court before. And Sean Fleetwood is also commenting on this. He says, let's be clear. You remember Brian Murphy. We've talked about him before. The same rogue judge who got rebuked by SCOTUS for telling Trump to ignore SCOTUS when it paused his injunction on the 3rd country deportations. And Kagan even rebuked him below down there. So this guy has been like openly ignoring the Supreme Court for months now, maybe over a year. When did this one drop? See here, the nation's highest court just reversed the stay, just temporarily stayed Murphy's injunction. So then he issued a directive to the federal government. He said, well, they can't block me. Who do they think they are? The Supreme Court? He said, my policy is not even impacted by them. Then they went back to the Supreme Court. This time in 7-2, they came back and slapped Murphy down again. affirming that it did, in fact, cover you, Brian. So the incident prompted stinging criticisms from even Elena Kagan. To her credit, in a statement concurring with the court's clarification, Obama appointee Kagan noted that while she disagreed with the Supreme Court's initial decision to block Murphy's injunction, she does, quote, not see how a district court can compel compliance with an order that this court has stayed. If we said you can't do that, how are you then doing it? You know, it's like talking to him like a child. But they're just activists, man. And until Congress does something, the Supreme Court's not going to do anything about it because they don't even police themselves. Because if they police themselves, then they are kind of admitting tacitly that there's a problem inside the judiciary. And they hate doing that because it wrecks their credibility. So they just, everything's fine. We'll just, deal with it up on appeal and so on. But Congress can and should check these judges. This is openly insubordinate. And Trump's policies are being stripped out from under him because of the Joe Biden judge called Brian Murphy and his compatriots. So while that's happening, the admin is not letting up. And there's new reporting that they're now using a different tact. In this case, they're now issuing fines. We've said it's time for you to go. Continuing to remain here is in violation of our law, and there will be consequences for that. One of those will be a $998 per day fine that we'll impose upon you, which is a lot, $1,000 a day. If you don't self-deport, then we're going to bill you for it because we're paying for it in the terms of free housing, free healthcare, free schooling, and more. So now 103,000 fines have been imposed, up to a total of $84 billion. And this is a very interesting strategy because the idea is, okay, you want to be naturalized, you want to be TPS'd in, you want to become a permanent resident. We'll process your application soon as you pay your $500,000 fine or whatever. And that's only like 500 days here, okay? So you're here for like 20 years at $1,000 a day. That's a lot. So now, according to Fox, Homeland has issued more than 100,000 civil fines totaling about $84 billion to illegal immigrants, and they've actually collected $1 billion of that. They've issued 103,000 total, and as of July, $1.2 billion in payments have come in. They say if you have a final order of removal, so these are for people who had been processed, we've already got your name. We know who you are. We've got your ID. We've got your fingerprints. We said you got to go. You haven't gone. You haven't confirmed you're out. Fines start to accrue. Illegal immigrants are required to pay the fines before they are deported. And then Homeland has said it may just go and seize assets from those people. So we'll just come take whatever you got and then deport you. Trump has unveiled a series of measures designed to encourage illegal immigrants to self-deport. Homeland has said that the program costs significantly less to traditional deportations. Just leave and it'll save us some cash and we won't hit you with a fine. They've outlined the benefits. Self-deportation is safe. We'll give you a stipend. We'll put you on an airplane. And go back. You won't lecture us about how amazing your home country is, how great it is. The great people of Haiti, I think, is what Debbie Wasserman, football face Schultz, had to say. So in May, Fox News reported more than 3 million illegals had left during Trump's first year back. Department now saying 2.2 million of those people had self-deported. People are quibbling with those numbers. Oversight is suing for them. Homeland has also said another 900,000 had also been arrested, and the crackdown continues because that's why we elected the president. So yet another angle, another vector here to solve this problem. Of course, we've got many others that are also being contemplated, like debanking and more. And so that is a good update. Now, as we saw, what they are doing is trying to keep people here, but fortunately, Homeland is being successful in removing folks, including this person here. You see, ICE Chicago, they posted that this person called Giovanna Mercedes Moreno Acquipinti, age 32, an illegal alien from Venezuela, one of the people that Joe Biden wanted to keep here, is a former Illinois teacher. Now that's curious. Teaching the youth of America as an illegal alien. Ochi Pinti was wanted for her involvement in a 2024 Tren de Aragua mass shooting at a house party in Chicago where 3 people were killed and several people were injured. Oh, Ochi Pinti shooting people or helping other people shoot people from Tren de Aragua. Well, now she's gone. Homeland says she has been deported. If you come to our country illegally and break our laws, we will find you, we will arrest you, and we will deport you. Here is the story, courtesy of local news.
New tonight, Homeland Security has deported a woman who they say was involved in a deadly mass shooting. Officials posted this picture tonight of Giovanna Ocapinti, which they say is from Venezuela and a former teacher. DHS says she was arrested and released last year, and that Cook County wouldn't move forward with her case. They're accusing her of driving the gunman who killed 3 people and shot 5 others at a party in December of 2024. Those shooters were arrested and deported. Officials say the shooting was connected to a Venezuelan gang. New tonight, Homeland Security has...
Tren de Aragua. And Joe Biden wanted many more of them to stay. And they organized and accomplished a large portion of that effort in their final backstab ever. And so here's more from Eric Schmitt to round us out, saying the Haitian TPS was supposed to last for 18 months. It's temporary. They had an earthquake. Okay, we're going to help out a little bit. We don't want global instability in our hemisphere, whatever the justification was, which we don't buy it. But then 16 years later, Democrats still call it temporary, and it needs to be just a little bit more temporary for another 50 years. A child born when the program began is nearly old enough to vote or sponsor a parent for a green card, which is the whole point. Temporary has lost all meaning. It is time for 350,000 Haitians to go home. And we can't even have a reasonable conversation about it anymore. I mean, if they had not invaded us, maybe there'd be some, empathy left in the American population to, have a reasonable conversation about this according to their reasonableness. But we can't do it. They invaded us with 25, maybe to 50 million people. And so now there's no other options. It's like just taking buckets and pitching out the water of a sinking ship. So we got to go quickly. No more, fake excuses or justifications to extend this in perpetuity. Time to go. Here's Eric Schmitt.
Haiti was first designated for temporary protected status following the 2010 earthquake. The designation was supposed to last for 18 months. It has now lasted 16 years.
Yeah.
Yet, we're still being told that this is a temporary program. In Washington, temporary apparently means forever.
True.
A child born when Haitian TPS begun is nearly old enough to vote or sponsor their family for green cards now. That's how long Washington has been calling this program temporary for the Haitians who are here. Haiti was first
been going on forever, and they would just continue to allow it to go on forever. And they would have, but for President Trump being elected. The American people have seen what mass invasion has done to the nation, and we're not tolerating it anymore. So we're happy to see these developments. We still have the problem of activist, illegal judges openly flouting Supreme Court rules to prevent the operation of the law. But let us never forget what the Biden folks did. On their way out, they wanted to ensconce the invaders with extra protections to prevent their removal. Fortunately, a lot of that has been reversed. The Supreme Court, as bad as they've been on many other issues, said TPS can be canceled. It is being canceled, and the deportations will continue until territorial integrity improves. We're going to be here to continue to cover it. Thank you for joining and subscribing as we do. All right, we got one more update, my friends. And then we'll hear from you. And let's talk about this criminal case that just went down. We got some documents queued up here and some reaction from the defense lawyer on this story. Here is the latest here. The criminal trial of Shiloh Hendrix now comes to a close, and we get a split verdict. She was acquitted on one count, convicted on another count, raising a lot of questions about the constitutionality of these criminal convictions. And so we're going to parse through exactly what happened. We've got the most recent court documents queued up here, including the jury instructions that were ultimately submitted to the jurors to parse through what the language was that they were reading in order to determine innocence and guilt. And we've got some other interesting stories here about the cameraman, the person who was allegedly the victim of the convicted charge, the person who got justice on this day for being the victim of disorderly conduct from Shiloh Hendrix seen here. But the verdict looks like this. If you go over to the court docket, you can see this case has been going on for quite some time, originally filed 8/26/2025, and it's 2 counts. It was originally 3 counts, but now it's down to 2. And as to the count 1, she was acquitted on this. As to count 2, she was convicted. 2 counts of disorderly conduct for offensive, abusive, boisterous, noisy, obscene conduct. Now, if you missed the story, the way the facts went down, and we're going to read through it in the judge's motion, order denying Shiloh's motion to dismiss, which you can see right here. She walks us through the court's interpretation of everything that went down here. And so we'll get some good details from the judge's perspective. But this was the video. And the allegation here, and if you listen to the video, we're not going to do that because of our YouTube censors here. But in the video is the N-word. And what is happening here is that her child, according to Shiloh, was at this park with a bunch of other people there in Little Somalia up in Minnesota. And as she is recorded on this video by this guy, as we saw in this photograph right here, Sharmaki Bail Omar, who we're going to learn a lot more about, who's apparently a rapist, allegedly, got his case dismissed after raping somebody, according to the reporting. She was there, and her child was out at the playground. And then, as you can see, the Somalians and other people there were also on scene. Some other child came out and grabbed an applesauce packet from Shiloh's child, runs around, stealing property out of her bag, and then ultimately Shiloh goes and tracks it down, recovers her property. So as we then pick up on the video, this guy comes upon her and starts saying, "What did you say to this other guy?" And in it, she's saying, "I called him," this young kid, "I called him the N-word," okay? Says it multiple times in the video. We'll avoid it for our censors here. But as you're going to see in the recitation of facts, the question is, are those words, are they fighting words? Is it a statement that would otherwise be free speech that is then also escalated into something that can be criminalized? Because just saying racist things, just saying things that are offensive is the whole point of the First Amendment. It's not for friendly, polite speech. It's for unfavored, disfavored speech that is very irritating to a lot of people. But we codify that as protected. So in order for it to be criminal, it needs to be something worse. We call those fighting words. We're going to take a look at the jury instructions and see what the jury was told to interpret. So as she's walking around, she picks up her kid. Then this other alleged rapist comes upon her and starts saying, "What did you say? What did you say?" And she says, "I called him the N-word. I called him the N-word." And she's just saying, "Yeah, I said it. Like, what's your problem? Get out of my face. He was stealing my stuff. I went to go track it down." And ultimately, she's walking away the whole time, okay? Not trying to like instigate, not trying to get into his face. Then he walks back upon her, gets closer to him and to her and the child. And then again, they get into a conversation. Here's a photograph of the child that the judge is going to say is obviously autistic. And I don't know what's so obvious about that in this photo, but the judge is going to interpret this in a way that's very favorable to the victim, so-called, which is this alleged rapist. And every time that you see this happening, they're just words, okay, coming out of her mouth. She's not getting in his face. She's not like lunging at him. She's not raising anything. She's walking away the whole time. He came to her and says, "What did you say? What did you say?" And this entire time she's walking away. Now, of course, we don't endorse that word, but you know, it's America and you're allowed to say those things. without being convicted of crimes for that, so long as that they're not fighting words. So as you see, okay, she's walking away. He walks right back up to her and they have a conversation. She says, yep, I did it. He stole my stuff. She walks away again, more conversation. So nothing that is instigating anything, just to be clear about that. So the person, there were two people who were charged as victims. First one under count 1, for which she was acquitted, was the father and the child. All right, the father and the child, that 8-year-old that you saw up there on the playground. Second one was for the guy holding the camera. And so we're going to show you more about the guy holding the camera right here. Sharmaki Bale Omar, the guy who filmed Shiloh Hendrix. And if you look more into the story, you'll find this article about Rochester men charged with raping a teen earlier this year get their charges dismissed. Wild times. So as you see the name, Sharmaki Bale Omar, age 29, and Mohammed Omer of Rochester are facing felony charges related to the rape and the sexual assault of a 16-year-old female, just to show you kind of the double standards that are going up there in Somalia, Minnesota. And SBO is the name of the second victim down here. So this is the original. Actually, there's an amended complaint. There were originally 3 charges on this. Then they filed an amended complaint. You can see right here, amended, and 2 charges on this one. So as to the first count, the one that she was acquitted on, so not guilty on that one, that was for the child, the victim, YJ, and the father, SHJ. The other dude was the victim because he then came upon her and filmed him, and she starts saying, yeah, that's what I said. And, I'll say those things if, you're acting that way. Okay. Like she said those things clear as day on the video. You can go check it out. But he is the second victim here. Okay. So SBO is the guy's name. Turns out he's a rapist, according to the postbulletin.com. And as to the editor's note, all of these charges were dismissed in the interest of justice on March 14, 2025. So in other words, the N-word gets you a criminal conviction, but apparently raping, according to these charges, raping and assaulting a juvenile, have your cases dismissed on and in the interests of justice. So Omar, SBO, was charged in February, had a court appearance. Other person had charged. It's Omar and Omer, both men accused of going after a 16-year-old, 2 criminal complaints. The juvenile told a man that she had previously been in foster care, with that she had been assaulted multiple times by both of these guys. The man reported the assaults to the police department shortly after taking the juvenile to the hospital for a assault evaluation. The man reported the juvenile called him, asked her to pick him up at a gas station, told the man she had run away from her foster home in Farmington, hitched a bunch of rides. Then she met Omer at a gas station. Then he said, why did you come back to my house? Then there was a call for service at a gas station. Officers got there. She was gone. Once she got back to the trailer, both of these dudes, Omar and Omer, according to the postbulletin.com, raped and assaulted the teenager. She told that to the police. Omar tried to get her drunk. Then the other Omar, the guy who was recording the video, arrived a while later and said, go for it. Both men were identified by this child in a photo lineup. And then during a search warrant, law enforcement found the juvenile's glasses in one of the men's vehicles and a towel that had been used by the juvenile. Now, along with the trauma, she reported she had foot pain. She left the trailer in rain boots that did not fit because the men took her shoes away so she could not run away. Okay. Now, I don't know exactly why it was dismissed, but at some point, according to this editor, Mark Wasson, all charges dismissed in the interest of justice, March 14, 2025. Insane. Okay, that's insane. These dudes should be locked up for the rest of their lives. If this is true, maybe she recanted, maybe there's no evidence there, whatever, case gone. All right, so now we know who we're dealing with. Okay, so same name, presuming it's the same guy, Sharmaki Bale Omar, who is SBO. as the victim in the video. Ultimately, he got a conviction against Shiloh Hendrix. Insane. So here's more of the background. So as this case was progressing, we just had the trial wrap up, an insane trial. It was like 4 days long for 2 disorderly conduct misdemeanors. Totally unheard of to have something go that long. And the judge who presided over this whole thing is this lady right here, Assistant Chief Judge Krista M. Daly, presiding over the Hendrix case, saying she was appointed back in 16, elected in 18, term expires in 31. She is a member of Women Attorneys of Rochester. Her name is Krista M. Daly. She's volunteers for county seniors and Habitat for Humanity, and a high school mock trial coach. Amazing. So she presided over this case, and she's writing this right here. She says, all right, look, Shiloh Hendrix, Marie Hendrix came out, filed a motion to dismiss the case. And before the trial got started, she gave us a quick, rundown here of what happened, and then denied the motion to dismiss. So in this summation, she says, well, the parties say that the facts in this matter are undisputed. Okay, like these things happen. Shiloh says, yes, I did say that word. It's all on video. We can see it. But it's about the interpretation of those facts that ultimately matters. Now, according to the complaint, this is the judge writing. This happened back on April 28, 2025, after 6 p.m. SHJ, which is the father, was at Soldiers Field Park with 3 kids. One of SHJ's kids, an 8-year-old child, is one of the alleged victims. And again, no conviction as to the kid or to the father. They're both described as victims in the complaint, as we saw right here. So 2 victims under 1 count. Child is described in the complaint as, quote, profoundly and visibly autistic. And I don't even know what that means. We just saw the child up on the playground up here. Right. So if you're profoundly autistic, I kind of think like you're kind of like seated there, not moving around. This kid's up on the actual playground, kind of poking around. You can see that right there. And she's pointing to him like he came up and stole my stuff. Judge says, due to his autism, child does not understand the typical boundaries and requires intensive parental supervision, which the parents were not obviously providing. Child wears a Project Lifesaver device because he is prone to wandering off, which I guess might be like a leash. Child is of Somali descent. Oh, surprise. Allegedly, child took an applesauce packet from Shiloh's diaper bag. In response, father attempted to retrieve the applesauce packet from his son. Shiloh then also attempted to get the item back from the child, but then the child climbed the playground equipment, as we just saw, to get away from his father and Shiloh. Now, at this point, Shiloh allegedly became very angry, shouted at the child, and repeatedly called the child the N-word. Then that caused the child to freeze. Father was concerned, based on Shiloh's anger and words, that she would strike the child. Then Shiloh grabbed the applesauce packet from the child. So following this, then another park goer identified as SBO, the alleged rapist who we saw had his charges dismissed, he showed up. He witnessed the encounter with the child and then approached Shiloh. SBO, Omar, was recording his confrontation of Shiloh about the incident. He said, "Did you call that kid the N-word? A racial slur?" Also said, "You know he's autistic," because I guess they all know each other. Then defendant Shiloh admitted using the racial slur and stated she can call the child that, quote, if he acts like one. And we saw she's backing up the whole time, just talking. SBO continued to confront the defendant, Omar, the alleged rapist. Then she began cursing. She flipped him off and used the same racial slur against him. And, as she's walking away, to be clear. So the question is not about the speech. You're allowed to, say nasty things. It's about whether that is a crime. When SBO asked defendant that, Shiloh, "Did you say that?" She said, "Yeah, he took my son's stuff. He just stole from me." More cursing from Shiloh towards the rapist continued. Then the father explained that the child, as well as his other children, were scared and they were troubled by Shiloh's hateful words and conduct. And so at the time of the incident, there were multiple other unidentified individuals in the park, including children. So the issue is whether or not the state has established probable cause. She files a motion to dismiss, saying this is free speech. You can't charge me for this. So what? If I said that, I can say what I want. It's a public park. Judge says, question is about the law. Probable cause exists where facts alleged, if you take them as true and if you view them in a light most favorable to the state, as we're talking about right now in the Tyler Robinson trial, whether that would permit a person of ordinary care and prudence to entertain a strong suspicion that the offense was committed. Here, the judge says, from Krista, the complaint alleges a mix of conduct and language. Okay, so conduct and language that the trier of fact, in this case, the jury, may consider in their evaluation of the case. Saying, here, Shiloh chose to physically pursue a child who is visibly disabled, and again, not sure how clear that is. We didn't get to see the trial. This whole thing was not publicized or televised. Chased him through the playground, and she physically pursued the child and then took the applesauce packet from him. She was yelling at him. During this, then she called him a racial slur. Now, during the video recorded portion, she again, because that was not on video, then during the recorded portion of this, she again uses the same slur along with other abusive language while holding her child in proximity of other children and adults, where the complaint alleges direct face-to-face use of highly inflammatory language in a confrontational setting. Okay, that's language together with circumstances, which the judge will say is the chasing, indicating a foreseeable risk of immediate escalation. Dismissal is improper because the determination of whether the speech constitutes fighting words is inherently fact-intensive and reserved for the trier of fact. Now, just to pause for a moment, let's not forget the jury acquitted her of conduct with the kid and the father. So all of the chasing stuff, okay, as to count one, which is the father and the child, that all just got a not guilty. So it's really just about the video and the speech as to the second guy. Like, it makes no sense. Count one is YJ and SHJ, not Omar. So the judge's reasoning, like, okay, I can follow the logic here, but the jury didn't buy it. The chasing of the child, not guilty. The fear of the father, not guilty. You know, repeatedly using the racial slur against the kid, not responsible for any of that, not guilty for that. So at the probable cause stage, the court does not weigh evidence or resolve factual disputes. Here, the state has alleged a factual basis for which the speech in question could be found to be fighting words by a jury. So if they were to find fighting words, speech plus conduct, then it would not be protected speech. The state has alleged additional conduct besides the speech, which was the chasing of the kid and the, taking back of the applesauce, that a jury could determine to be disorderly conduct. And so the state has given us sufficient evidence here. We think there's probable cause. This whole thing can advance more towards trial. So it did. And then what we saw is the actual jury instructions. And they kept a lot of this locked down too. There was a request to seal a bunch of stuff. This dropped right before the trial started, July 16th. And they said the prosecutor, Mr. Nick Schabel, Rochester City Attorney, he said, this case is very sensitive, and our office is getting a bunch of calls, increase in calls about this matter. It's drawn a lot of public interest, and so we're going to seal everything down. And the prosecutor is very upset about this. So she seals everything, juror list is sealed, nothing can be shared, and so on and so forth. So then the jury got this before they issued their decision. Here are the final jury instructions. These dropped yesterday before the verdict came down. And the jury was deliberating all night. We've got Shiloh's defense attorney who's going to walk us through his reaction to this, and he's not happy at all because it's illogical. But standard instructions here, okay? Instructions, consider everything as a whole. Remember, I'm just the judge. I've got responsibilities. The defendant deserves a presumption of innocence, did not have to testify. She did not testify. Proof beyond a reasonable doubt is critical, and it is doubt is such proof as ordinarily prudent people would act upon in their most important affairs. And this is, kind of defined differently wherever you go. It's kind of the point. A reasonable doubt is a doubt based upon reason and common sense. It does not mean a fanciful or capricious doubt, nor does it mean beyond all possibility of doubt. It's reasonable doubt. Now, you're not supposed to consider the penalty here. You can use circumstantial or direct evidence. Follow the rulings that I instructed. Remember, judges and lawyers are not witnesses. You are allowed to take your notes into the jury room with you, but they're not binding or conclusive. If you have any questions about what is accurate there, let the court know. You can determine credibility of the witnesses, and you can determine whether impeachment of the witnesses were impactful. Now, here's the definition of the key components. If I do not define a word or phrase, just use the common meaning. These are multiple offenses. Go one by one and decide. As to count one, and again, not guilty on this, okay? The encounter with the child, not guilty. She's acquitted. Under Minnesota law, whoever knowing or having reasonable grounds to know that it will tend to alarm, anger, disturb others, or provoke an assault or breach of the peace engages in an offensive, obscene, abusive, boisterous, or noisy conduct, or in an offensive, obscene, or abusive language, tending reasonably to arouse alarm, anger, resentment in others is guilty of a crime. Okay, broad statute. Now, how this is interpreted, we have to include fighting words because it cannot just be speech alone. First, the elements are, you got to go through the check boxes and decide whether this happened or not. First, if she is guilty of this, they said she isn't, she engaged, and it's going to be the same definition for both counts, so we'll just read it here. But if this person, Shiloh Hendrix, engaged in offensive, obscene, abusive, boisterous, or noisy conduct, that's the rule. And if you find that the conduct consisted only of offensive, obscene, or abusive language, you must also find that they were fighting words. Now, speech is not fighting words merely because it is racist. In the instructions, you can have racist speech. Now, fighting words are a little bit different. It's another exception the Supreme Court wrote into the First Amendment. These are words that constitute personally offensive epithets that, when spoken to the ordinary person, under the circumstances of the case, are, as a matter of common knowledge, inherently likely to provoke a violent reaction or incite an immediate breach of peace as to whom those words are addressed. And the offense may be based on the fighting words alone without resulting in actual violence. So it's like a very nuanced definition here. Focus is upon the nature of the words and the circumstances, what else is happening, rather than the actual response. Second, knew or had reasonable grounds to know that the conduct would actually provoke an assault or provoke a breach of peace, that they took place in public or private, that they took place on April 28th. If you find each one of these things has happened beyond a reasonable doubt and been proven so, you got to find this person guilty. If you think not, you got to find them not guilty. Okay. And she won that. So she got a not guilty on this. So no. So if those circumstances of, chasing an 8-year-old around, screaming the words to that child is a not guilty, how the hell is this other one guilty? Then there's an encounter with a man recording at the park. Same elements, again, same definition of fighting words. Going to provoke a violent reaction. As we mentioned, she's walking away the entire time that she's saying it. And there's so it's the same, literal same definition, just as to the second guy. Then we've got the electronic exhibits. The jury may return for information. Let me know if you have any questions. You can contact the court. I'm reminding you that try to deal with your unconscious biases. Take your time. This is an important decision. Don't rely on stereotypes and more. You've got duties as a juror. And when you finish your deliberation, fill out the forms. So it's just logically inconsistent. Like the first count, I would say, is arguably, way more aggressive than the second count. It's something that involves actual physicality to it, running around, physical contact, taking back the applesauce packet and more. The second guy showed up on scene and approached her. And he's the one who's kind of provoking the entire altercation. He's saying, what did you say to that child? What did you call this kid? And then came upon him, and she says it back directly to him, right? So yeah, I said it, and I'd say it again, and don't act like that, and I won't use that language. And then the entire time she's walking away. So the jury then came out and convicted. Verdict came down in an insane, illogical decision out there in Little Somalia, Minnesota.
To the verdict today.
I think it's pathetic. I think it's sad. I think it's sick. I think shocked. I've never had a trial where they keep people. This is a misdemeanor, by the way, till 10:30 at night. Never even heard of that one before. Most courts, most counties, what they do is around 4:30, 5 o'clock is they say, okay, we're going to send the jurors home. They got kids, they got families, they got things to do. No, we're keeping them. I've never heard of that before. So that alone, I know this is a thing, I guess, Olmsted County, they do this. I thought that was bizarre. But the verdict itself, let's make something clear here. Let's make something very clear. She's acquitted, not guilty, right? Not guilty with the child. The state reads a 5-minute victim impact statement about the child? She was acquitted about the child. She's convicted on the count involving the cameraman, who they never called to testify. Keep this in mind. They never called the cameraman to testify. This judge prohibited us from telling the jury that Shire Jamali, had a GoFundMe page, $340,000. He testified that it was done in May last year, done. That's not true. There's a link on the bottom of the page that goes to another open account. My investigator hit the link last night, donated $10. It's open. You can donate right now. You can donate right now to Shire Jamali's GoFundMe page right now. It's open. He testified under oath and perjured himself. He perjured himself over and over and over and over again. This was without any stretch of the imagination. It was like I was fighting the prosecutor and the judge. It was like I'm taking on two parties at the same time. The judge and the prosecutor. It was very bizarre. Very bizarre. GoFundMe. Huge, worldwide, giant. It's like Google, right? This is so big. My investigator was going to testify that this page with Shire Jamali's name on it. 5-year-old. The kid's 9. 5-year-old. $340,000 he raised. The judge would not let me show it to a jury. Sorry. The judge would not let me show it to the jury. Okay? And if you go through any of you right now can go online right now. And the judge, like, you can't authenticate this. You can't lay foundation. This prosecutor is telling the judge, oh, how do we know this is real? How do we know this is real? So anyone can make this up. You can go online right now, today, right now. Go on that page, unless they run and take it down. Scroll down. He has an open GoFundMe. He said on the stand he does not. He lied and lied and lied and lied. This entire thing's a shakedown. They ought to be ashamed of themselves. The prosecutor should be ashamed of himself. The judge should be ashamed of herself. I had a battle here for 4 days on a stupid misdemeanor, disorderly conduct. This is nuts.
It is nuts.
This is crazy. $340,000. Nope. Can't show the jury. 5-year-old. Kid was 9. His name's on it. Can't authenticate it. Still open account. So we're going to appeal it. We will appeal it. We have so many appellate issues, I don't even know where to begin. Judges screaming at me during the trial. Judges interrupting me every time I want to make a record. Judge says to me, Mr. Corrales, you keep wanting to make a record after I rule. This is crazy. Most rulings during a trial by a judge are made during the trial. And then when you take a break, you make a record, right? You take a break, you make a record. I kept asking. If you're in there and you watch the trial, I kept asking, I need to make a record. I need to make a record. She'd get upset, run in the back. Get upset, run in the back. Your Honor, I need to make a record. It started piling up. All these objections started piling up. Your Honor, I need to make a record. I need to make a record. She'd run in the back. I'm like, Judge, we got to make a record. This is insane. This isn't law. This is a circus. This is monkey court. This is nuts, right? You make a record. The judge should come out and say, okay, I made my ruling, Mr. Corrales, what is your record you like to make? I try to make a record. She interrupts me from the beginning, right from the start. Every time I tried to make a record, she interrupts me. Every single time. Every single time. I'm like, Your Honor, I'm trying to make a record. That's what we do as lawyers, right? I don't know if the lay people or the people in the community understand this. The way trials work is judges make rulings during trial. We don't want to interrupt the trial to make a record every time someone objects and there's a ruling. So when there's a break or you go to lunch or at the end of the day, you make a record. She wouldn't let me make a record. If you're in there, you heard it. She'd talk over me. She'd interrupt me. Wouldn't let me make a record. Over and over and over again. Why? She didn't want anybody to hear what? They didn't disclose the name of Shire Jamali until Monday. The first day of trial. No, I'm not done.
Sorry.
Until the first day of trial, they didn't even disclose his name. Think about that. A jury trial in the United States of America. I didn't get the name until Monday. When we started the trial, until Monday. And then my investigators do a record check. Then we uncover, oh my God, he's got this GoFundMe. $340,000.
Mr. Corrales, a couple of things.
Sure.
According to the court, you agreed to those free trial terms about not getting the witnesses beforehand and...
Did not agree to it. Here's the deal. I thought I was coming down here to try a free speech case. You all saw the video. I thought I was coming to Rochester to try a free speech case based on the video. Then it took on an entirely different, it just turned, right? Mr. Jamali takes the stand. Wouldn't answer any question I asked him. He sat there like this. I don't understand. He looked at his interpreter. I don't understand. Over and over and over again. When the prosecutor asked him a question, he had no problem through the interpreter understanding.
Weird.
Never had a problem understanding.
Weird.
Not one time. I put the detective on the stand. Detective, did he ever have a tough time understanding you? Never had a tough time understanding him. Never had a tough time. Not one time did the detective have any problems understanding. You were in the jury room, or in the trial. You were in the courtroom. You're in the courtroom. He acted like he didn't understand any question I asked him. Every single question was like pulling teeth. It's like, huh? It went on and on and on. This is a fraud. This whole thing's a fraud. The cameraman. By the way, let's make something clear. They didn't convict him with the child. Your headlines could be about the child. No, they convicted her on the video with the cameraman. The disorderly conduct is about the cameraman.
Wild.
And from what I understand about the cameraman, he has a GoFundMe. And his GoFundMe is he died. He has a GoFundMe that he died. Give money to the cameraman who died. And from what I understand, he's well alive. This whole thing is fucking bullshit.
Whoa!
This is a fraud.
Whoa!
This is a fraud
I didn't realize that was
committee.
coming. Man, shout out to that guy. All right, so I feel that energy. You know, you fight your heart out for something like this, you get completely railroaded. So I understand that that level of energy, 100%. And it sounds like they'll appeal this thing, and we're looking forward to that because it really is logically inconsistent. Like, how is it not disorderly conduct and fighting words against the kid and the father, but only against the cameraman? So letting it fly, and, you know, that was very therapeutic in many ways. So the truth is the penalty for Shiloh Hendrix is going to be supervised probation, 200 hours of community service, $1,000 fine, so no jail. NAACP is already celebrating this. And of course, you know, it's going to, I'm sure, continue to develop. We'll see what the appellate arguments look like. But if this defense attorney is accurate, it feels like they were going in there in order to try to secure a conviction, especially if he did not get information that he needed before the trial started. He's learning all of these things at the last minute. And then the actual victim who got the conviction wasn't even there, it sounds like. And the person who testified, the father, could hardly speak English. Don't know how he understood what the word meant. Maybe that's why they gave her the acquittal on that. So the whole thing sounds like it was just a circus, freak show, but it's like many other things in Little Somalia, Minnesota. Certain people get one standard of justice. Other people, like alleged rapists like Sharmaki Bail Omar and Mohammed Hussein Omir, apparently, according to the postbulletin.com's Mark Wasson, get their sexual assault charges dismissed in the interest of justice. They don't need to advance this to a trial and then get acquitted at a trial, but prosecutors file that motion. Okay, charges are filed by the prosecution's office. The defense attorney is not dismissing the charges, no. Prosecution is in the interests of justice for whatever reason, rather than letting this thing go forward to a trial. So very interesting development today. We'll see what the arguments look like on appeal. Of course, we don't condone, rhetoric like that. We understand people say things when they're frustrated. Defense attorneys dropping F-bombs on live streams and more. But the problem is, can you be criminally charged with a crime for free speech when it is not fighting words, when somebody's literally walking away saying those things and the other person is coming to the scene in order to engage her about that, bringing himself to the fight and then prompting her to say the thing to him? She then turns around and gets convicted for that, but not the original initiating source of the altercation. So I think that the appellate arguments will be very interesting to watch, and I'm curious to see what some of the procedural arguments will be. And as it stands, rapist goes free, the alleged racist gets convicted, and that's justice in Minnesota. So we'll keep our eye on this one. Thanks for joining, as we do. All right, now let's see who's here and joining us. And my understanding is we just had liftoff over there out of SpaceX. Heck yeah. Amazing. That's great news. Shout out. So that puppy's up in the air. Starship. Here, let's just open this up while we're here. Then we'll hear from you. Starship's 13th flight. Where are we at? Oh, I think I see my house. Right there. Wow. All right, so they just blasted off, man. About 6 minutes ago. Let's see. Where was that countdown? 3 minutes. Nope. Didn't get it. Okay, here, we'll just watch it together while we're here. Let's get this volume up, baby.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Let's go. Yeah, baby. Looking good. Shout out.
Vehicle is pitching downrange.
Look at that thing,
chamber
man.
pressure's nominal.
To the moon, baby.
30 seconds into flight. 33 out of 33 Raptor engines lit on the super heavy booster, arcing away from us here at Starbase.
Wild.
Coming up on max Q, maximum aerodynamic pressure, which again for this flight is going to be higher than it has been on any of our previous Starship flights.
All right, so that puppy's up there right now. And that just happened moments ago, like I guess 7 minutes ago. So this is the live feed right now.
Yeah, we sure did.
Starbase
That was awesome.
From the booster splashdown.
Just going 26,000 kilometers an hour over there. Not a big deal.
Shut down. All right, Starship 6 Raptor engines have successfully shut down.
Nominal orbit insertion.
And there's our call out for nominal orbit insertion. So we got a ship in space.
Heck yeah, we love that nominal orbit insertion. Nicely done there, Elon. All right, so friends, let's see who's here and joining us. Happy Friday. Thank you for being here and subscribing and liking the video if you're heading on out. This morning, we had a great interview with Jeffrey Clark. You know him as Trump's former assistant attorney general, the guy who was essentially called the mastermind, the architect of the 2020 election theory that there was fraud everywhere. He wrote that memo. They wrecked his life, or attempted to. He's doing pretty dang good right now as far as we can tell. But he joined us this morning for about an hour. We had a great interview. If you're a member or a new member, check that out. Thank you for joining us for that. I thought it was a great conversation. And so we'll be publishing that probably tomorrow. If you want to check that out, come on back here for that as well. Great chat. And so we had that this morning. If you're a member, check it out. We also, tomorrow morning, will be back with our Saturday members only morning stream. And hopefully we see you there as well. Let's see who's joining us this evening, friends. Thank you for supporting our work here. And what's going on over here? Yes, Rick D. I see some nice comments from Rick D in the house. And boom, here we go. Oh, it's Joe Biden with a blizzard. Oh. Is that a real thing? It's a pretty thick blizzard there. Nice. So he's double fisting ice cream. It's probably in the White House. Rick D. Okay, launch window, 6:45 for SpaceX. Man, we just nailed that. Thank you, Rick D. Hopefully you're as excited as we are. Cheers to Rick, man. Cheers in the house. Thank you, Rick. What's going on? Steph D, 29 months as a member. What's up? 29 months, Steph. Good to see you. I'm starting to have hope, okay? Save America now. We got to keep our hope. You know, it's easy to black pill out there and everything's terrible. We're going to lose everything. Country's over, blah, blah, blah. But it's not. We're going to win. We're on the side of truth. And we have a lot of amazing forefathers who came before us, and we've got a duty to keep on the cause of liberty. So we're going to do that here. Thank you, Steph D, for joining us for 29 months doing that. So cheers to optimism. We appreciate that. Hey, Ilhan Omar's sister linked to central figures in Minnesota's fraud scandal, courtesy of Rick D. I think I saw that. We may come back on that one tomorrow. Something like they had an address that was matched. So like Ilhan's address was matched to, I think, Feeding Our Future's address. Nice stuff. Yeah, nice, Rick D. Over from the Daily Wire. Shout out to their reporters for digging that one out. Yeah, we're waiting for some updates on Ilhan. Hey, Rick D. A federal judge, head of the class, Rick, a federal judge in Massachusetts has issued an order blocking Trump from ending TPS for Ethiopians and South Sudan and others. Thanks to Brian Murphy and the other activist judges out there in Massachusetts. That's why they sued there. Less than 30 days after SCOTUS said a district court couldn't do it. It's a judicial insurgency. It's been going on for 2 years now, man. We're getting tired of it. Thank you, Rick D. Severus, what's up? Hey, good to see you, Severus. Thank you for the donation. Says, trust but verify. Yeah. And then speak softly and beat him with a big stick. Who was that? Maybe not beat him, but, you know, carry a big stick. Was that Teddy? Yeah, Ronald Reagan. Some good quotes over there. And we don't trust the leftists who say, trust us, and then we ask to verify the trust, and they say, no verification for you at all. Thank you, Severus. Hey, Jeffrey Adams. Hey, Academia, or rather Idemia, the French company, is owned by an American company called Advent Investments. Find out who owns Advent Investments. Who do you think it is? Liz Cheney, probably. Why she's rigging our elections? It's probably all Liz Cheney. She's probably the mastermind back there. Yeah, calling up Mark Elias. Hey, thank you, Jeffrey Adams, for that. Good to see you. Hey, Rick D, here's a tip for a long comment that we posted. Let's see what's going on over here. All right, we'll come back on this one. Looks like a long post. Oh, man, a statement for one of our fallen soldiers. All right, we'll come back and read that, Rick. Thank you for sharing that with us so we can pass that along and pray for their family. Jeffrey Adams, Idemia. Yeah, stupid Siri, I'm driving. Jeffrey Adams, we got it. We know what you were saying. So, yeah, it'd be curious to see who's actually behind it all. But I'm not even really blaming the company right now. Like, the company might be totally innocent. Maybe not, but maybe. And it's just the election officials. I don't know if they would have called it a glitch if it was solely the company. Like, if it was absolutely the company's fault, I would imagine they would come back out and say, there was a software error. Like, there was a literal software error. Our vendor had a problem. Don't get mad at us. It's all them. Which is why I doubt that it is them at all. because now they're kind of being coy about it. Oh, it's a glitch. And, we're investigating ourselves. We'll get back to you on that. So I think it's probably them. And I think if I had to guess, I would think the company's more honest than they are. Off-Label Podcast, what's up right next door on the Off-Label Podcast? Check it out. This election conspiracy has Democrats acting like Mr. Popo in Dragon Ball Z Abridged, which I've never seen. All these squares make a circle. All these squares make a circle. If nothing happens to these people, ... Never mind. Yeah, that's interesting, Off-Label Pod. I've never seen that, but I think that's like a pretty big thing, right? Dragon Ball Z. I think you've mentioned it a couple times. Maybe I should check it out. But isn't it like those like flashy ones that like give you an aneurysm or like cause a stroke? You watch these like anime and then you like die or something. Kind of feels like that. Thank you, Off-Label Pod, for the nice donation. Hopefully your streams are crushing out over there. We appreciate you being here today. Rick D. Yeah, we saw this one. This is a big win for our friends at the Oversight Project. I saw this today. Biden is no longer going to be fighting the appeal of the audio recordings. As far as we know, actually, Jeffrey Clark posted an update about this. He says they might be trying something sneaky, but unlikely. So remember, we've been talking about these 2017 Zwanitzer tapes. Joe Biden had the interview tapes with Robert Hur that we all heard, the special counsel who was investigating him for his classified documents. But in that report from Hur, he referenced Biden's audio recordings in 17, where Joe was talking about the classified info with this other guy called Zwanitzer. And Zwanitzer tried to delete those files and cover it all up. But there's been a lawsuit going on from Heritage and Oversight, and they've been trying to get these records for years now. They got the records approved to be released to them by the judge. Then Biden was appealing it, and he's kind of losing the appeals. We read that earlier, the order from the Court of Appeals saying, you lose, but we're going to give you time to appeal to the Supreme Court. Apparently, they're not going up to the Supreme Court. So it's a victory there. And presumably, those tapes will be released, dropping his effort to block the DOJ from releasing the tapes. So we'll get those tapes, and Joe's brain, I'm sure, will be incredibly broken. And the argument is, if he was totally gone in 2017, then maybe all of his actions in 2021, when he took office, are invalid because he has no capacity. Okay, if your brain is fried, then you may not even have capacity to sign a will or to enter a contract. But they made him the president of the United States. So I'm very curious to see what those audio recordings sound like. Danny Murphy, what's up? Hey, great interview, Rob. Man, thank you, Danny Murphy. It was great. Jeffrey Clark's a sharp dude. Very sharp dude. And he went to Harvard. One of the only people from Harvard I've ever liked in my life. We've had a couple of members who've gone to Harvard, and they said, I went to Harvard, I'm a good person. I'm like, yeah. I believe him. But anyways, very smart guy. We had a great conversation today. He's out there fighting, man. We appreciate our fighters out there. Thank you, Danny, for being a member and joining us this morning live. What's up? Jeffrey Adams is here. It's too bad that Chief Justice Roberts is such a loser. It is a bummer. I mean, he should get control of the judiciary, okay? We know that he wants to be an institutionalist and kind of, swing both ways over there, but deliver on some principles, man. And, it's like the birthright case is like one of the biggest betrayals probably of our generation. I'm still smarting over that one. So thank you, Jeffrey Adams. I agree. It'd be nice if we had some people who actually loved America. Hey, Mountain Goddess. What's up, Mountain Goddess? Says medieval problems need medieval solutions. 27 months as a member. That's a very profound point. And what I think you mean are trebuchets is probably where you're going with this. Mass amounts of trebuchets. And I don't want to hear from the catapulters either, okay? The catapult fans out there, just save it, okay? Trebuchets are superior to the catapults. And so I think you're right about that, Mountain Goddess. That might be a new business idea. I like it. How big can we build trebuchets? Should look into it. Off-Label Podcast. Hey, the case in Minnesota, Somali with an autistic child stealing from her child, autism scam from Medicare. Nah, there's nothing there, right? Actually, that's a great point, yeah. Was this like an actually autistic kid or one of the Leering Center autistic kids? Which one? Because seemingly, according to the billions of dollars that were paid out to the Somalians, like all of them are autistic. Everybody's autistic and everybody's starving. Thousands of kids. Yeah, are you autistic? Yes. Are you hungry? Yes. Great. Here, fill out this form so I can bill the government for it to the tune of billions of dollars. It's a great point off label. Maybe it's not even real autism. I don't know. King of Biltong. Hey, what's up, King of Biltong? Man, skip the gas station junk food while you're traveling. Pack some Biltong in there from Biltong USA. It's clean, it's protein, it's got packed with all good stuff. Grass-fed, air-dried beef with great flavor. Go to BiltongUSA.com and use code Robert, and you'll save 10% off on your delicious meats. Great to see you, Biltong. Thanks for the donation today. Hey, it's Joe Neerman, a.k.a. Good Logic, in the house. Man, that looks pretty cool. That's pretty cool. He could be a Marvel character. Shout out to Joe. Hey, shout out. You should have Joe Neerman on since you moved to DC. We should. Mitzi Dots. What's up, Mitzi? Yeah, we love Joe here. I haven't talked to him in a while, but that's a great idea. I saw he was on Tim Pool the other day. Shout out to that. That's awesome. And Joe is right next door. He's on YouTube at The Following Pro and on Rumble. He does streams much later at night, I think like 10:30. I hop in there from time to time. I mean, I just, turn it on. Hey, what's Joe talking about tonight? And he's usually talking about stuff that's relevant here. So check that out. If you want to get some more analysis from another attorney out there, I think where's he, like New Jersey? So it would be good. I'll have to send him a message and see if he'll be here soon or if we can just do something on the interwebs. It should be fun. Hey, so thank you for that, Mitzi. Hey, TW Wright in the house. Man, thank you, TW, for watching over on Rumble. Starship, T-minus 8 minutes. We were trying to fly through it so we could flip it on, but we missed the start. Only by a few minutes, but we really had to get through that other defense attorney who was dropping those bangers and the swear jar at the end of the show. Hey, Jonah Finn. Okay, since 2018, there were 629 elections decided by 10 votes or fewer, which is a lot, including 91 decided by a single vote. Crazy. That's not only in New Jersey, right? Probably all over the country, but that's a lot. That's what we're saying. Every vote counts. And if they just, minimize it, they say it's only, 400 votes. Okay, would you like your vote to be disenfranchised? Why don't you sacrifice your vote? Don't require us to sacrifice our votes because you don't want to fix the system. Thank you, Jonah Finn. This one from Dark Rogue. Hilarious. Yeah, I have to admit something. Good to see you, Dark Rogue. I agree. I can relate to that attorney. 100%. It was like therapeutic. He was just going off. He'd been there for 4 days, total sham trial. I felt that way. I've absolutely acted that way. I can't even count the number of F-bombs I've dropped on some of your streams, Rob. Me too. They're just internal. Sometimes they get close to coming out here, but, we do our best to prevent that from happening. This is a family show. There are kids out there in the audience, so Dark Rogue, I understand that totally. But it's nice sometimes to just kind of live vicariously through other people on scene. And he was not happy. And I can relate to that. The law is supposed to not be, a one-sided just blood sport against your client with a foregone conclusion. Like, you're supposed to be able to play by the rules. And it's not just courts of law. Like, if you're playing a game and somebody's cheating in the game, you become murderous if you're a competitive person like me. Dark Rogue, thank you for the nice donation, my man. I appreciate all the love you've sent over this week. Tattoo in MD, 7 months as a member. Thank you. Almost full baby here, Tattoo in Maryland in the house, right around the corner, it sounds like. Mad Love and Rockets, almost a baby in the house. Is that a rocket joke? What is that about? Yeah, so amazing. So we had a rocket go off today, and we're waiting for our baby to come to Earth. Any day now. We're now, talking to the baby. We're ready, come on out. It's nice out here. Come on out any day now. So inching down, inching closer by the day. And Alexis is doing great. Just kind of hanging out, waiting for this little creature to come out. Thank you, Tattoo. Hey, Off Label. It's kind of flashy, but look up DBZA. All these squares make a circle off stream. The parody show is actually better than the original, in my opinion. I've seen a lot of people say a lot of good things about that type of content. I haven't actually watched any of it. like when I was coming up, I liked, you know what I liked was like the original Batman cartoon, like the one that was kind of dark and ominous. It was like almost for adults, but it was for kids. You're like, this is like pretty heavy stuff going on in this Batman show. But that's about as far as I got into a lot of that. Even like, Family Guy, like I watched some of that. But other than that, not too much of it. A lot of it's kind of noisy and just flashy and kind of hurts my brain. But I've heard people say like some of the like there's like morals and lessons and it's profound. And it's like lifelong, like, paradigm shifts from watching some of these shows. I'm like, that's pretty cool. So Dan, hey, guillotines is another medieval solution for certain problems. Those throwy things don't make it any longer. They're called trebuchets. Okay, Dan. And I built one in physics class my junior year, and it was epic. I was the first kid in class to hit the castle. Thank you very much. Highlight of my entire life. Thank you, Dan. But yeah, a lot of medieval solutions, and a lot of good options and proposals out there. So we appreciate those. Thank you, Dan. All right, so friends, thank you for sending those in. We got one more. Let me read the one from Rick. Let me not forget that. We got it over here, so I can zoom in on it. Turbo. Hey, Rob, they say Dems are harvesting ballots mailed to defunct registrations for people who moved. Yeah, like you. That happened to me. Explicitly, that happened to me. I got a dead guy's ballot delivered to my house for like 2 elections. Would you support the DOJ prosecuting voters who voted at their new address and had the Dems vote for them at their old address? Yeah. Well, so if somebody's illegally voting, they should be prosecuted. 100%. You don't get 2 votes. Squeezing these double voters with federal felony charges will bring the spotlight on Dems and their cheating methods. Should we prosecute the use the whaling to propel the SAVE Act through passage? Well, so let me just say, we definitely want the SAVE Act passed 100%. And secondarily, we don't want fraudulent voters. So whether somebody's harvesting ballots that go to a UPS store, a senior care center, to a bridge, in Georgia, to empty lots, to residential facilities, 1,000 people registered at a 60-bed residential facility, 1,000 ballots going to those places that don't have 1,000 beds in there, stuff like that. I think those are fraudulent voters probably. So they should be investigated. The problem is, like, are you going to investigate like 1 million cases? If 150 million people vote in a federal election for president, are you going to go and investigate 80 million records or something? Even 1 million records and just validate things? No, that's the whole point. You get it's security against prosecution by obscurity. You live in the masses of the numbers, which is why the system needs to be sanctified throughout. But it's a great concept, Turbo, and I think that that's probably what they're doing. Sergeant Bob is here, and it's good to see you, Sergeant Bob. We saw Sergeant Bob on the virtual baby shower. Rob, there is a whole lot missing on the alleged rapist. The 16-year-old was from foster care. I am acquainted with a good-sized homeowner near Prescott Valley for kids with these problems. They are emotional wrecks. Even as a cop, I can't judge that guy until all the facts of the alleged crime are known. Might be evidence and credibility issues. 100% right. 100% right. But they didn't force that case to go to trial. You know what I'm saying? They dismissed it. And maybe that 16-year-old was just making stuff up. No question about it. But my point is that the prosecution seems like that they were a little bit, eager to dismiss that case, where this one went all the way to a trial in an attempt to kind of engineer the outcome. But I agree, he deserves the presumption of innocence on those things. I just happen to wonder if it's the same double standard that we see across the board there in Little Somalia, where seemingly certain groups of people get the benefit of the doubt and others do not. But Sergeant Bob, I agree, the presumption of innocence stands. And maybe maybe the 16-year-old was making it up, but maybe she wasn't also. And maybe these rapists just went free. Dan, we'll never know because it never went to trial because the prosecution dismissed it. Don't know why they did that, but they did. Dan, remember, and they thought it was credible enough to charge them, and then suddenly not. Remember, Dan, it's against federal law for aliens to vote in elections, 100%. And it is occurring over and over again. They're allowed to enter to vote, and the registration No checks and balances with proof of citizenship required. It's right, Dan. 100% true. And here's a memory shared with us from Rick D., who has served our country honorably. Thank you for doing that, Rick. Sharing this from the fiance of one of the soldiers killed in Jordan about Tyler Freehand. May he rest in peace. Saying, Tyler was my fiance and the love of my life. His loss has devastated me beyond imagining, and there are no words that can truly capture the depth of that grief. To the world, Tyler was an Army officer. To those who knew and loved him, he was so much more. Serving others, standing up for what he believed in wasn't a job, it was his purpose. Tyler embodied everything the Army values strive to represent: loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. He didn't just wear those values on his uniform, he lived them every single day. He looked up to Ted Lasso as an example of the kind of leader he wanted to be on that TV show. He believed the leadership began with kindness, humility, and genuinely caring about people. It never mattered to him what someone's past was, their financial situation, their race, their gender, their rank. He believed every person deserved dignity, compassion, and the opportunity to succeed. His soldiers meant everything to him. He went above and beyond to make sure that they were prepared not only for their military careers, but for life beyond the Army. Whether it was helping them understand their education benefits, teaching them about financial responsibility, or simply taking the time to listen when they needed someone, Tyler poured his heart into serving those under his leadership. Every day he would come home and tell me stories about the soldiers, their accomplishments, their struggles, and how proud he was of them. I hope each and every one of them knows just how much they meant to him. Outside of the Army, Tyler found joy in the little things that made him who he was. He loved building Lego sets. Me too. I've got them right here. Cheering for the Atlanta Falcons, using Dr. Squatch soap, and drinking Chateau milk from Missouri. He loved to travel. After his military service, Tyler wanted to become a high school football coach. He wanted to mentor young people, teach them the game he loved, and help anyone willing to listen to understand personal finance so they could build a secure and successful future. Tyler believed in investing in people. His goal was to leave every person he met better than he found them. His legacy is not only one of service to his country, but of compassion, generosity, and an unwavering belief in the goodness and potential of others. I know countless lives are forever changed because he chose to lead with his heart. The very last text message Tyler sent me before he died was simply, "I love you." Those 3 words were perfect, even if he didn't know it at the time. This is the man he was. This is how I hope Tyler Freehand is remembered, not only as an exceptional Army officer, but as a man whose greatest strength was his heart. I will love him for the rest of my life, and I will do everything I can to honor the legacy he leaves behind. First Lieutenant Tyler Freehand's fiance, called Claire Fletcher. And thank you, Rick D., for sharing that with us so we can send some love and prayers over to Claire. May Tyler Freehand rest in peace. We thank him for his service to our country. We pray for his family and all of those who are serving our country and who are losing their loved ones in conflict on behalf of our beautiful nation. And Rick D., thanks for sending that along. Friends, thank you for praying for Claire Fletcher, for Tyler Freehand's family, and for everybody else who's out there. We're grateful for you. And Rick, thanks for sharing that with us, man. It's heavy stuff, man. Heavy stuff. But we appreciate you sending that in. And thank you for your service, Rick, and for passing that along so we can pay honor and tribute to our best. And friends, as we close it out on the day, let's see if we got a couple of comments from today's live stream on X, and then we'll wrap. Are we live right now? Nope, that's not it. Where's our live stream? That's not it. We posted a bunch of videos that are bearing our live. Let me see if I can find this thing. Well, I don't know if we have any comments over on X. It says we're live, but I just cannot find it. So here, let me check this one right here. All right, so I'm presuming that we don't have any comments. And so we'll leave it there and pause on the day. Normally, there's Neuro D over there. So thank you, Neuro D, if you found the thread and if you're posting something for us. And why can't I not find this? I don't know. All right, so friends, it's been a beautiful Friday. Thank you so much for joining us on the day. and for being here all week long as we've covered a lot of action and activity on the day. Did they change something on X? You forgot to put a post up. Normally, it just does that automatically. I don't know what would happen there. It says we're streaming over there, but I can't find the post. All right, so thank you, Donut Mind Me, for letting us know. All right, so we'll pause here on the night, my friends. It's been a beautiful day, a beautiful week. We're going to recover, rest, restore, rejuvenate, and all the things this weekend, and then we're going to return back here on Monday to get into it again if you don't join us tomorrow. Big thank yous to our amazing mods and meme smiths. What's going on to Muffin Rando? We got John in the house. Thank you to Donut Mind Me. We got K Bean, of course, modding the fort down for us. We got Neuro D, shout out. Janek, Dog Digger, Geegum Geegum, Elliot, and just Rhonda keeping things nice and beautiful around here. And thank you for joining us. Thank you for subscribing if you haven't done that. Thanks for sharing the show with someone you know, so they can come back and join us the next time that we go live. And of course, this weekend, I hope you're doing something fun, spending time with friends, family, the people that we love, accomplishing all the things, including rest, relaxation, restoration, and then you return back here on Monday to get into it again. And on Monday morning, we're gonna have another great interview with Dr. Janice Johnston. She is the former Georgia State Election Board chair who knows everything about what's going on in our Georgia election fraud situation. And so we're excited to talk to her Monday morning, 10 a.m. Hopefully you come and join us. But if we don't see you, we'll see you back in the afternoon, of course. Otherwise, my friends, it's been a beautiful week. I hope your evening is outstanding. You come back on the next one because in order to do all of this appropriately, we need to see you right back here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful evening. Sleep very well. We'll see you right back here on Monday. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching, my beautiful friends. Now it's that time where the stream must end. You brought the heat with every chatting line. Together we expose corruption. One more time we dove in the truth where the media hides. Lit up the lies with receipts on all sides. The fight isn't over, but we made them sweat. We ain't done yet, no, not just yet. Because together we are watching the watchers. Truth on our side. Watching the watchers. We won't be denied. Watching the watchers. Eyes open wide. Fighting for freedom with nothing to hide. Drop a like and don't forget to share. And bring a friend who's ready to care. Tomorrow's lies are just today's news.